Chapter 350. After the filming was completed, the actors left one after another, each with their own work to continue. Ronald was also brought back by his father's men. It was estimated that he would need to recuperate for a long time. People often say that it takes 100 days to recover from a serious injury. Although it wasn't absolute, it still made sense. After knowing that Ronald had left, Charlie and the others were in a much better mood. They didn't have to worry about bumping into the young master anymore. Xiaogui didn't rush them. He only asked Charlie and the others to go back a week before Christmas. Xiaogui was now filming Old Cat. According to the reactions of customers and netizens, this real-life documentary was very successful. It had a lot of hits on the internet and was famous in the circle of cat friends. The documentary didn't just talk about how long cats lived. It also talked about the health of cats. What they ate, how much they ate, what they did, etc. These were all topics of discussion among cat friends. Although Xiaogui didn't rush them, the Jiao family missed Zheng Tan. For the past 3 months, they called Zheng Tan every few days to check on him. Now that they knew that the filming was over, they urged Zheng Tan to go back quickly. Zheng Tan didn't want to stay here any longer, but Yang Yi said that there was still some work to be confirmed. He asked Charlie to bring Zheng Tan back to Chuhua City in a few days. Of course, during these few days, Charlie and the others were free. At the end of the year, relatives and friends would ask them to bring back some seafood or other local specialties. Therefore, Charlie and the others didn't idle around. When Charlie and the rest went shopping, they left Yang Yi at Kong Han's place. Kong Han had his own house in the city. During the filming, Yang Yi would stay at Kong Han's place for the time being. Kong Han's wife would stay in Jingqing. After everything was settled, Kong Han would return to Jingqing. Now there were only Kong Han, Yang Yi, and Zheng Tan in the big house. After the filming, Kong Han had 2 days of rest. After that, he would participate in the follow-up work. At the moment, Yang Yi and Kong Han were talking about the soundtrack and theme song. The soundtrack had been handed over to a professional team to produce, but the theme song had not been decided yet. Zheng Tan jumped onto the coffee table and looked at a piece of paper on it. It listed the people involved in the music production. Among them, Zheng Tan saw a familiar name. Jin's band was on the list. Zheng Tan did not expect Yang Yi to let Jin and his band participate. When Yang Yi and Kong Han talked about Jin's band, their comments were quite high, especially Jin. Yang Yi admired Jin very much and commented that he had unlimited potential. Unknowingly, the young man who had squatted at the door of the night building with a dispirited and hopeless expression back then had already grown to this point. Perhaps everyone who came out to make a living would have some kind of bumpy experience, just like Jin and Xueding, who had worked hard for several years. As long as they were given a chance, they would try their best to shine. Oh, Black Charcoal, speaking of which, Jin and his band are your old acquaintances, right? Only Yang Yi and Kong Han knew Zheng Tan's background, so they directly called Zheng Tan by his cat name instead of his stage name. As for the relationship between Jin and Zheng Tan, Yang Yi had also done some research. At that time, Yang Yi had taken a fancy to Jin's band because of a popular song that year, Cat's Fantasy. Later, when he talked to Jin, Yang Yi learned that Jin and his band had risen in Chuhua City, and the completion of the song was also credited to a cat from Chuhua University. In addition to the cat that made Jin compose the song, Jin also talked about Zheng Tan. After that, Yang Yi did some research. Because of this, Yang Yi felt that Zheng Tan was very magical. Yang Yi did not like cats very much. Previously, he had made the documentary because of his grandfather, but he had also done some research on cats. He had never seen a cat with such ability. Thinking of the surprise when he saw the results of the investigation, Yang Yi shook his head. The world is full of wonders. Just as he was talking, Yang Yi's phone rang. He walked to the balcony to answer the call, then went out to the airport to pick up a friend. When Charlie and the others came, Yang Yi had not returned yet. Your flight is on Friday, right? Kong Han asked. It was already Tuesday, and Friday was only a few days away. No, we're driving back. There was a problem with the car before, and Mr. Yang asked someone to help tow it to be repaired, so we've been driving the car that Mr. Yang gave us. Now that the car has been repaired, it's more convenient for us to drive back, Charlie replied. Kong Han nodded. That's true. It's more convenient to drive back with a cat. You won't be tired if you take turns driving. Indeed. All right, Director Kong. If there's anything else you need, such as reshooting, just call me directly, Charlie said to Kong Han. According to the original plan, although the movie was now finished, it could only be considered as the completion of the early filming. Follow-up production was still needed, and this would last for a few months. As for the release, it would only be released next summer. It could be considered a summer movie. Okay, you guys be careful. Okay, Director Kong. Goodbye then. After leaving Kong Han's residence in the car, Charlie and the others were still discussing the things they bought today. Some were for their mother, some were for their sisters-in-law, and of course, their wives and girlfriends were not lacking. I seem to have bought some things that I missed. A person in the back seat was holding a notebook and looking at the list, checking off one by one. He found that there were still a few things that had not been bought at home. I'll go tomorrow. There's not much left anyway. I'm almost done today. Tomorrow, you guys go shopping. I'll go out for a walk and take a few more photos. Tomorrow, bring black charcoal out with us. We won't have to send it to Director Kong again, Charlie said. They were all worried about leaving Jing Tan alone in the house. The other cats were fine, but Jing Tan was a special case. Otherwise, Charlie would not have bothered Kong Han. The others had no objections. Thus, the next day, Jing Tan followed the few of them around the city. Finally, they came to the beach. Charlie and the others wanted to take a few more photos here. Although there were not many beauties in gauze skirts and bikinis in this season, and there were not many people nearby, Charlie and the others' enthusiasm did not diminish. Looking at the sea also depended on the season. Some people compared the sea in May to a gentle young girl. It was a good time to bring your lover or wife, choose a sunset when the sun was not so hot, and go to the beach for romance. However, it was winter now, and there were 5 men and 1 male cat. There was no romantic factor. They came here purely to take photos as a souvenir. After all, Chuhua City was inland. They could see lakes and rivers, but they couldn't see the sea. Many people felt that the sea in this season was a bit fierce and did not like to look at the sea at this time. But there were also people who liked the shocking view of the sea with the cold wind and turbulent waves. Feeling the sea breeze, Charlie brushed his hair that was messed up by the wind. I heard that it will be colder here after a while. I can still bear it now. Zheng Tan had short hair, but he also felt the feeling of his hair being blown back by the wind. His whiskers were also moving. The few of them posed for photos, and Zheng Tan also joined in. However, after taking so many photos, there was not a single group photo. Let's find someone to help take a picture. The person with the camera looked around and his gaze fell on a figure walking towards them. He lifted his feet and ran over. Hey, beauty, can you help take a picture? Sure. The other party did not refuse and quickened her pace towards Charlie and the others. When the woman approached, Charlie and the others realized that she was really tall. The tallest among the 5 of them was a little more than 1.8 meters, about 1.828 meters. But standing in front of this woman, they did not feel the height advantage at all. Although the other party was wearing leather boots with heels, the heels were not considered high. From this point of view, this woman was definitely more than 1.75 meters. When they were with the film crew, Charlie and the others had seen a few female celebrities with beautiful faces and good figures. In comparison, the woman in front of them seemed a little weaker in terms of face, but strangely, even if this woman's face was not outstanding, even if she casually tied a ponytail, even if she was dressed simply, the overall feeling she gave off was not inferior to those celebrities. She even had a stronger aura, an indescribable feeling. When this woman walked over, Charlie and the others' heartbeats unconsciously sped up, and so did Jing Tan. Are you a model? One of them asked. The other party smiled and nodded. Really? What's your name? I'll check it out later. I feel like you should be a famous model. Another of the 5 said. However, the other party had no intention of saying his name. He only said, just a small model. Probably realizing that his question was a little abrupt and rude, Charlie kicked the person who asked for his name, then looked at the woman in front of him and handed the camera over. Then I'll have to trouble you. The other party took the camera and waited for Charlie and the others to pose before taking photos. After taking more than 10 photos in a row, Charlie and the others finished posing. Thank you, Charlie said. You're welcome. The other party smiled and turned to leave. However, before leaving, her gaze stopped on Zheng Tan for a moment. Charlie and the others did not notice this, but Zheng Tan saw it. In fact, before this woman came over, he felt like he was being stared at. When the other party came over to take photos, Zheng Tan's feeling became stronger and stronger. Just now, the woman's gaze when she left also confirmed Zheng Tan's suspicions. However, Zheng Tan was sure that he did not know this person. If he had seen her before, he would definitely have an impression. Although this person's appearance was not outstanding, her overall appearance would leave an impression. That kind of temperament was difficult to imitate. However, the other party did not have any malicious intent. It was more like she was sizing him up. After the other party walked further and further away and disappeared, Zheng Tan did not think about it anymore. As long as she did not have any malicious intent, it was fine. As for what the other party was planning, if it really involved Zheng Tan, they would eventually meet. After taking photos, the group went back and tidied up their things. They would have a good night's sleep tomorrow and drive back to Chuhua City the day after. Just as Zheng Tan and the others were discussing about going back, there was another person in Kong Han's residence besides Kong Han and Yang Yi. It was the woman who helped Zheng Tan and the others take photos at the beach. How is it, Li Wei? That cat is not bad, right? It's okay. Li Wei looked at the series of photos in her hand and said, in the photos in Li Wei's hand, there were other animals besides Zheng Tan's. There were cats, dogs, and a funny monkey with its teeth bared. Kong Han heard this and laughed. It's rare to hear okay from your mouth. It seems that you are quite satisfied. How about this? Li Wei hesitated for a moment. I'll take a look and see if I can get in touch with the others. Anyway, Kong Han and I think that cat is quite suitable. The others are definitely not as good as it, Yang Yi said proudly. Chapter 351. The day before Zheng Tan and the rest were to return to Chuhua City, Yang Yi called to inform them that there were still a few scenes to reshoot and asked Charlie to postpone their departure by 2 days. Since Yang Yi had called them directly, Charlie and the rest could not refuse. Yang Yi had indeed provided them with a lot of benefits. Their expenses for the past few days were all covered by Yang Yi, so they did not have to worry about anything. Postponing their departure for 2 days was not a big deal. They just had to call home and the boss. The Jiao family was a little disappointed. According to the original plan, Charlie and the rest would depart on Friday and arrive on Saturday. Even if something happened along the way, they could still return to Chuhua City on Sunday. That way, the Jiao family could have a weekend off and reunite. However, the change of plan displeased Zheng Tan and the Jiao family the most. Zheng Tan felt that the Jiao Ma did not say anything during the call. She only told Zheng Tan to return once he was done with his work, but now they had to postpone it by 2 days. Since Yang Yi and Kong Han had spoken, the Jiao family could not say anything. After all, they had been busy for so long and only the last stage was left. Even the smallest details had to be taken care of. A perfect ending would leave them with no regrets. Zheng Tan believed in intuition. What was going on with the Jiao family? This time, only Charlie and Zheng Tan came to Kong Han's place. The rest did not follow because Yang Yi said that Charlie alone was enough. He said that they would reshoot a few simple scenes, but when it came to Kong Han, Zheng Tan felt that he had been cheated. First, he did not see the rest of the film crew. That teacher Jiang was not around, and the so-called reshoots were just a few steps according to Kong Han's request. Why would they have to reshoot that? Also, what did this have to do with the plot of the movie? Charlie had his doubts too, but since Yang Yi and Kong Han had already decided, he could not say anything. At noon, when Charlie was sleeping in the guest room, Zheng Tan saw another person in the room. This person did not appear in the morning, but Zheng Tan could feel her presence. The smell in the room was proof, and Zheng Tan also felt that he was being watched. Now, Zheng Tan was finally sure. How is it? Li Wei, is the effect okay? Kong Han pointed at the few videos that were taken in the morning and said to Li Wei. Li Wei no longer stared at the screen, but looked at Zheng Tan. Jing Tan also sized up this tall woman with a strong aura. When they were at the beach, he didn't pay much attention to her. Now, it seemed that this woman was not simple. Her name is Li Wei? He felt like he had heard it somewhere before. Her memory was too long ago. She had probably heard of her before she became a cat. She couldn't remember who she was, but she was definitely not a small model, like she said. Moreover, she was also familiar with Yang Yi and Kong Han, so it was even more impossible for her to be a nobody. More training would be better, Li Wei said. Of course. After all, I haven't received professional guidance. Yang smiled. Even though it's not an expensive breed, it's still able to hold the fort. Just like you models, you don't necessarily need a stunning face, but you must have a certain temperament. Moreover, it had experience on stage, so it wouldn't have stage fright. It's much better than the other candidates you collected. Jing Tan was baffled. What were the two of them talking about? Did they ask for his opinion on the decision? Yang Yi saw that Li Wei was quite satisfied with Jing Tan, so he said to Jing Tan, "Black Charcoal, do you want to participate in the show?" He didn't expect Jing Tan to understand much. Yang Yi just said it casually. He felt that whether this cat could participate in the show was up to the Jiao family. Forget about being a human, he was just a cat now. Why would he walk in a show? The style of Beauty and the Beast? In Jing Tan's confusion, the work in the afternoon continued. However, Li Wei had something to do and left. Kong Han didn't let Jing Tan continue to walk back and forth. Instead, he took some photos seriously. Although he was a director, Kong Han was also involved in photography, just like Yang Yi was also interested in photography. On Sunday, Yang Yi invited Charlie and the others to have a meal together. Then, on Monday, everyone went their separate ways. After leaving the coastal city, Jing Tan still had doubts in his heart. It was already Tuesday afternoon when he returned to Chuhua City. At this time, there was no one in the Jiao family. Jiao Pa was busy in the courtyard. It was said that there was a selection and he was one of the candidates. Little Pomelo was in school. Now that she was in the second year of junior high school, she was busier than when she was in the first year of junior high school. Jiao Yuan was still the same, coming back once a week. Jiao Ma, on the other hand, came back every day. There was a shuttle from Chuhua University to Chuhua Affiliated High School. Originally, Cha Lixiang took Jing Tan to the pet center and waited for the Jiao family to pick him up when they were free. However, Jing Tan couldn't wait. He didn't feel it when he was outside, but when he returned to Chuhua City, he had a strong urge to go back. Therefore, when the car drove near Chuhua University, Jing Tan couldn't wait to run out. When the car stopped at a crossroad, he knocked on the window. Charlie had no choice. He knew that this was the area that Jing Tan was familiar with, so he sent a message to the Jiao Pa. The Jiao Pa replied quickly. He was in a meeting, but because he knew that Jing Tan was coming back today, he had been paying attention to his phone. After seeing Charlie's message, the Jiao Pa sent him a message to let Jing Tan come back. The key was in De Pang's usual place. Jing Tan once went home to take out the key on De Pang's balcony. The Jiao Pa saw it. After that, the Jiao Pa helped Jing Tan put the key there a few times. De Pang often lay on the balcony to bask in the sun. His personality wasn't as simple and cute as it looked. Strangers didn't want to get close to him, so it was safe to put the key there. Charlie read the Jiao Pa's message and then opened the car window. Before he could say anything, a black shadow rushed out. Their car was parked along the walkway, and once they got out, they would be on the sidewalk. There were no cars, so it was quite safe. Furthermore, this was the area where Jing Tan often walked. Charlie was not worried about this. What he wanted to say was that there were a few bags of Jing Tan's in the car. Daily necessities and local specialties were all inside. Seeing that Jing Tan quickly ran out of sight, Charlie could only give up. He took the things to the pet center and asked the Jiao family to pick them up. Otherwise, he would find time to send them over. Jing Tan ran in the direction of the courtyard. He didn't walk on the main road. Instead, he climbed over the wall and entered the campus from outside. It was almost a straight line. He was too familiar with this area. Even though he had been away for 3 months, once he set foot on this place, his brain could completely picture the route of this place. The sky was not as clear as the city where he filmed the movie, and the air was not good. However, Jing Tan didn't care about this. He felt comfortable all over and was in the mood to scare a Dai Xingyao that was pecking on the grass. On the campus, the number of Dai Xingyao was much smaller than the gray magpies and sparrows. However, it wasn't too rare to see them. In the winter, when sunbathing on the withered grass outside, one could occasionally see a Dai Xingyao pecking on the grass. The sparrows were still so noisy, so small, so many. A gray magpie stood high on a fir tree. When it saw a student passing by, it suddenly flew over and shook its wings to scare the passers-by. Several female students were scared and screamed. The birds on the campus were still so smart and cheap. Everything was still the same, but there were some differences. When he left, it was still early autumn. The residual heat of summer had not dissipated, and the surroundings were green. Now that he was back, it was already winter. The sycamore trees were yellow and the leaves were sparse. As long as there was a cool wind and rain, the ground would be covered with leaves at night. It was a very frightening scene. Early the next morning, many students would take their mobile phones and cameras to take pictures. In the kindergarten, there was an outdoor class. One by one, the little fellows were running outside like balls. It was unknown whether they were wearing too much or were chubby to begin with. Zhuo Xiaomao was saying something to the two children. Seeing the two children's round eyes and open mouths in disbelief, Zheng Tan knew that Zhuo Xiaomao was scaring them again. Probably sensing Zheng Tan's gaze, Zhuo Xiaomao looked over. Then she grinned and ran to the side of the fence. She stretched her hand out of the fence and bumped palms with Zheng Tan, who was running over. Not staying there for long, Zheng Tan quickly ran to the courtyard. Huang and the sheriff were chasing a little Pekingese on the lawn of the courtyard. Zheng Tan had never seen the puppy before. It was probably someone's new pet while he was away. The two of them were too engrossed in chasing the puppy and did not notice Zheng Tan. Coming downstairs, on the balcony on the first floor, Depang was lying on the furry cushion that the old lady had prepared for him. He squinted his eyes and kicked his paws, dozing off. Sensing Zheng Tan's arrival, Depang moved his ears, opened his eyes and meowed. Then he continued to squint his eyes and prepare for sleep. Zheng Tan took out the cat tag and key from a half-opened box to open the door and go home. There was no one at home. Zheng Tan ran into each room to take a look. Then he jumped onto the sofa in the living room and rolled from one end to the other. There was a saying that went, "Gold or silver nest is not as good as your own cat nest." During the filming period, Yang Yi had arranged a good house for him. He did not have to worry about anything. However, he did not have the feeling of being tired but at ease. After rolling, Zheng Tan lay on the sofa and scanned the living room. Finally, his gaze landed on a magazine on the foot of the cabinet. It was a fashion magazine. Jiaoma was not too interested in this type of magazine. After all, teachers like her could not dress too fashionably. As a teacher, she had to be more mature. Now that little Pamela was in her second year of junior high school, she was used to it in junior high school. Jiao Ma was finally transferred to Chuhua Affiliated High School to teach senior high school. Teachers' attire in the affiliated high school were required. Plus, at her age, Jiao Ma did not care about fashion. Although Jiao Ma did not buy this type of magazine, a few of her friends liked it. Sometimes, they would bring the magazine when they came over. After reading it, they would leave it here. This magazine was probably the same. What interested Zheng Tan was the person on the cover of the magazine. It was Li Wei. Zheng Tan pulled out the magazine and looked at it. There was an introduction of Li Wei. He did not expect her to be a world-class supermodel. No wonder it sounded familiar. When Zheng Tan was talking to some of his friends about models, someone mentioned it. However, when he looked at Li Wei's face, he did not think that this person was very good-looking, so he did not pay much attention to it. However, Zheng Tan remembered that at that time, this model's status in the circle was very high. Her ranking was even higher than the current one listed in the magazine. She was a small model? Who was she kidding? Zheng Tan flipped through the magazine and put it back under the cabinet. It did not matter whether she was a world-class supermodel or not. It had nothing to do with him for now. In the afternoon, Jiao Pa went home early. He sent a text message to Jiao Ma and little Pomelo to inform them. Then he drove Zheng Tan to the pet center to get the luggage. He did not want to ask them to send it back. Just as he entered Xiaoguo's door, Zheng Tan heard Xiaoguo's roar. "Sesame, open the F***king door for me. If you don't open the door, there will be no food tonight. Not only tonight, there will be no food tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that. Do you hear me? Open the door for me." Chapter 352. If he remembered correctly, Sesame was the spotted cat that Li Yuanba gave birth to this summer. Xiaoguo was locked outside by a cat? Zheng Tan walked in and went straight to Xiaoguo's resting room. Xiaoguo was standing at the door of the resting room, pounding on the door and twisting the lock twice. Obviously, he was really locked outside. Xiaoguo's resting room was equipped with a handlock. For cats, this kind of lock was easier to operate than a ball lock. The door was locked, but where was the key? Zheng Tan saw that Xiaoguo was shouting, and the surrounding staff were laughing and talking in low voices. He was used to this kind of situation. Boss was locked outside by Sesame again. Ever since Sesame locked the boss outside for the first time when it was 3 months old, there would always be a few times every month. "I'm used to it." Sesame was born in the middle of June, and now it was the middle of December. Counting, Sesame was already half a year old. Zheng Tan couldn't help but feel that time really passed quickly. Just when Zheng Tan was thinking about how Sesame was doing, he heard the staff in the studio say, "Our boss likes this kind of thing. He clearly has the key and he can open the door even if it's locked, but he doesn't use the key to open the door. He's playing with Sesame. There are so many cats in the shop, and our boss likes Sesame the most. Don't be fooled by the fact that Sesame doesn't give him food now. When it's time to eat, once Sesame calls, our boss will run to cook cat food. He even doesn't give him food for 3 days, TSK, but Sesame is also teasing our boss. That little guy is very smart. If our boss is really angry, it won't play like this." The staff in the studio had already analyzed Xiaoguo, and they could predict his reaction and next actions. Zheng Tan really wanted to say, "Boss Guo, when you gave Sesame this name, did you expect today's situation?" Xiaoguo was shouting at the door when he heard the conversation. When he saw Zheng Tan and Jiao Pa, he blushed and felt embarrassed. He coughed and came over to greet them. "Black charcoal is here. Professor Jiao, I left your bags in the lounge. Are you in a hurry to get them?" Xiaoguo looked at Jiao Pa. "There's no rush." Jiao Pa also felt that the current situation was rather interesting. He had yet to see what Sesame looked like. Now that he was busy at the orphanage, he rarely came to the pet center, and it was often Charlie who went to pick up the cat. Not even 5 minutes later, probably because Sesame inside saw that there were no movements at the door, it tried calling out twice, but there was no response from outside, so it opened the door. The half-year-old Sesame was already about the same age as Zheng Tan. According to the size of Sweet Peanut and Big Little Rice, this fellow was still growing, and might even grow bigger than Sweet Peanut. Long hair with spots, it looked very strange. Jiao Pa looked at Sesame with interest. Towards a stranger like Jiao Pa, Sesame was a little more vigilant. However, because this was its own territory, and Xiaoguo was beside it, it didn't show any signs of aggression. Everyone in the studio knew that although this fellow usually seemed to play well with humans and animals, its combat strength was definitely not weak. This fellow had once been brought out to fight by Peanut Candy. When it fought with an adult cat, Sesame even won, and it did not suffer any injuries. However, Xiaoguo was glad that it was at night, and no one saw Sesame, or else it would cause trouble again. Ever since then, Xiaoguo kept a close eye on it. If Sesame wanted to play Open Sesame, Xiaoguo would play with it. However, unlike Sweet Peanut who loved to go out and cause trouble, Sesame didn't seem to like going out. Sometimes, even when the back door was open, it wouldn't go out. The studio was usually filled with familiar people, and Sesame would only cause trouble in this area. Sometimes, Xiaoguo wondered if Sesame knew that its fur color would cause trouble, so it didn't go out. As for Sesame, who always stayed indoors and mingled with the people in the studio, it seemed to be more intelligent than Sweet Peanut. It learned things very quickly, especially when it came to unlocking doors. It could play with it for half a day. Although it was vigilant towards Jiao Pa, Sesame still had some memories of Zheng Tan. Furthermore, there were some things that belonged to Zheng Tan here, and the smell told it that this place wasn't unfamiliar to it. After leaving for a while, when he came back, he realized that some things had changed a lot. During the summer, it was still a small kitten, and now it had grown so big. When he returned to the courtyard from the pet center, Jiaoma had already prepared dinner. Little Pomelo was very happy to see Jing Tan, and when little Pomelo was doing her homework, Jing Tan accompanied little Pomelo on the sofa to watch television with little Pomelo and listen to Jiaoma's chatter. Jiaoma always loved to do this. As it turned out, little Pomelo's mother came once again because of some business in the country. He didn't know if she had changed her mind, but she wanted to bring little Pomelo back to her home on the other side of the ocean to spend Christmas. However, she was rejected by little Pomelo. Pomelo's mother bought an iPhone for Pomelo, but Pomelo had never used it and just left it there. Then one weekend, when Jiaoma brought Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo out shopping, she bought a phone for each of them. Now, many students had their own phones and little Pomelo was alone in school, so Jiaoma couldn't take care of her. Even if she asked other teachers to take care of her, she was still worried. Thus, having a phone would make it convenient for them to contact each other. However, the iPhone that Pomelo's mother bought was too eye-catching. She couldn't underestimate the pettiness of middle school students. Jiaoma had been a teacher for many years, and she had seen many things. She didn't approve of students getting such expensive phones. When buying the phones, Jiaoma naturally asked for little Pomelo's opinion. Little Pomelo chose a phone that was less than 1,000 yuan, which was about the same price as some of the other students in the class. Jiao Yuan also chose a similar price. If they really wanted to buy a better phone, they could have bought one with their pocket money. However, they didn't choose one. With the new phone, little Pomelo called her mother to inform her. At that time, her mother said very well that they would contact each other often. However, she hadn't called since then. Little Pomelo didn't take the initiative to call, but her mood was more or less affected. When Jiaoma called Charlie, she wanted Jing Tan to come back early so that he could spend more time with little Pomelo. She heard that children wouldn't appear gloomy when they were with animals. Now that they were in their adolescence, children tended to think too much. Therefore, Jiaoma was worried. This was the reason why Jing Tan felt that something was wrong when he heard Jiaoma's voice. Since he now knew the reason, Jing Tan would naturally spend more time with little Pomelo. He even went to the junior high school to check on the situation. Little Pomelo was the same as when she was at home. She would also smile. There were familiar friends around her, and with little Pomelo's protection, there wouldn't be any trouble. However, sometimes little Pomelo would also be in a daze, especially when she heard the word Christmas. Students always had a sense of novelty when it came to foreign festivals. They felt that it was all kinds of high and mighty. Christmas was also a big festival overseas, so the frequency of it being mentioned was naturally high. This made little Pomelo be in a daze even more often. When she was at home, after finishing her homework, little Pomelo would also be in a daze. When she was in a daze, she would unconsciously turn her phone in her hand. One day, Jing Tan charged his phone's battery and finally turned on the phone that he hadn't turned on for a long time. After turning on the phone, there were still messages and all kinds of notifications. Jing Tan roughly glanced through them, then typed a message and sent it to a number that he was familiar with. After class, little Pomelo looked at the phone that had a message notification and saw that it was from an unknown number. She originally wanted to delete it, but after thinking about it, she opened it. The first message: don't be in a daze. If you don't do well in your final exams, your New Year's money will be halved. The second message: I don't believe in religion, and I don't care about foreign festivals like Christmas. Little Pomelo was very puzzled. From these two messages, she could tell that the person who sent the messages knew her very well and might even know the reason why she was in a daze. She didn't even tell Xianxia and the others that she was having a good time, so how did this person know? Thus, little Pomelo typed a reply: "Who are you?" Soon, a message came from the other side: "My name is Jing Tan." Little Pomelo wanted to ask more, but the bell rang, so she could only put her phone in her bag. After class, she sent another message, but there was no reply. This kind of question persisted until she got home. She even asked Xianxia and a few other classmates who went home with her if they knew this number, but in the end, no one knew. Black charcoal, who do you think this person is? Little Pomelo finished a set of test papers and laid on her desk. She placed her phone on the table and turned it with the movements of her fingers. Zheng Tan, who was squatting next to her, stroked his beard. I know, but I just won't say. Since then, Zheng Tan had texted little Pomelo a few times, but thinking that the finals were coming up, he didn't want to distract her. In the following days, little Pomelo would sometimes be in a daze, but it wasn't necessarily because of her mother's matter. Her mood was also a lot better. When she talked to Zheng Tan could clearly feel that this child had figured out her mother's matter. One day, after dinner, Zheng Tan went out for a walk. He wondered if he should text little Pomelo to play with her. He looked up and sighed. When he saw the night sky, his footsteps paused, and then he quickly ran to the place where he hid his phone. He took out his phone from a small hole in an inconspicuous tree in the forest. Suddenly, he remembered that he wasn't wearing a vest, but it wasn't good to go back now, so Zheng Tan hugged his phone and ran. Fortunately, it was night time. Along the way, he sneaked into the courtyard through the side door that had always been locked. Hiding in the bushes, he sent a message to little Pomelo. Little Pomelo, who was doing a mock paper, heard her phone vibrate. She glanced at the number, put down her pen, and opened it to read. After seeing the content of the message, little Pomelo frowned in confusion. She hesitated for a moment, then took a scarf and put it on. She said goodbye to Jiao Ma and went downstairs. As soon as she arrived downstairs, before she could send a message, another message came in. Go right, turn at the first fork and go straight to the lawn. Little Pomelo followed the message. This was the courtyard, so her safety was guaranteed. If she wanted to go out, she wouldn't do it. She couldn't run around alone in the middle of the night. She came to the lawn of the courtyard. There were street lamps around the lawn, but they could only illuminate the road beside the lawn. This little light was enough for little Pomelo to roughly see the surroundings. She didn't see anyone. At this moment, another message came in. Turn 30 degrees to the left and look up at the sky. Little Pomelo turned to the left and then looked up. Although the air quality in Chuhua City wasn't good, and sometimes the stars couldn't be seen at night, as if there was a layer of fog, at this moment, the two bright spots and the crescent moon were very conspicuous in the dark night sky. It was impossible to ignore. It was a smiling face, a celestial phenomenon, with two stars accompanying the moon. Venus, Jupiter, and the moon, the three brightest stars in the night sky, formed a smiling face. Little Pomelo stared blankly at the smiling face in the sky. After being stunned for half a minute, she couldn't help but smile. She let out a long breath, as if to exhale all the depression in her heart. Then she revealed a big smile, looked down at her phone, and pressed the call button. The cheerful sound of the phone rang in the bushes. It was quite loud. Zheng Tan. *CK. Why didn't the ringtone turn off? Wasn't it on silent mode? Without waiting for little Pomelo's response, Zheng Tan pressed the reject button and ran away with the phone. When Zheng Tan came back to his senses, he had already run to the old tiled housing area. He panted and thought that he might as well hide the phone here today and quickly go back to see little Pomelo's reaction. Zheng Tan hid the phone in the place he had hidden it before, turned around, and ran towards the courtyard. After running 2 steps, Zheng Tan suddenly stopped and looked around. It was still dark and there weren't even any street lamps. It was very quiet. Shaking his head, Zheng Tan continued to run towards the courtyard. After Zheng Tan left, behind a 2-meter-tall bush next to a tiled house, the phone screen lit up. Then it quickly dimmed. The phone had been pressed to standby. Click. The flame of a lighter lit up, and then the red light of a lit cigarette flickered. Chapter 353. After returning to the villa complex, Zheng Tan did not see little Pomelo at the lawn downstairs. When he went upstairs, he saw little Pomelo talking to someone on the phone. It turned out that many people knew about the twin stars accompanying the moon. The newspaper had mentioned it a few days ago, but many people did not pay attention to it. However, some people had been paying attention to it, especially Jiao Yuan and his friends. It was Jiao Yuan who had called to tell little Pomelo to go down to the villa complex to take a look. Due to the angle, she could not see it from the balcony at home. After hearing little Pomelo say that she had already seen it, Jiao Yuan did not say anything else. His friends were taking pictures and calculating the approximate distance between the 3 stars and the trajectory of the night to see if it was the same as what was reported in the newspaper. After that, little Pomelo continued to receive messages from the others. She did not mention anything about what had happened downstairs. Zheng Tan heaved a sigh of relief. When his phone rang, Zheng Tan reacted quickly. In addition, it was very dark in the bushes, so he was sure that little Pomelo did not see him. He was just worried that little Pomelo would overthink. Now that he saw that little Pomelo was acting normal, Zheng Tan was relieved. After calming down, Zheng Tan thought about the feeling that he had when he was in the old tile-roofed housing area. He felt like someone was watching him. However, he was in a hurry, and he did not see or smell anything strange, so he did not stay there for long. Zheng Tan did not think that he was overthinking. Even if he was, Zheng Tan wanted to go over and confirm it again. However, when he looked at the clock on the wall, it was very late. Jiao Pa had also returned. If he went out at this time, the Jiao family would not agree. Forget it, he would go over tomorrow. If there was really someone there, they should have left after so long. He might not be able to catch them if he went over now. Although he couldn't go out, Zheng Tan still recalled what had happened tonight. The operation at night was just a spur-of-the-moment idea. Originally, he just wanted to go out for a walk to digest his food. After seeing the 2 stars in the sky, he went to get his phone. He didn't even have time to put on his vest. As he thought about it, Zheng Tan's beard trembled when he recalled the ringtone of the phone. Thinking back, he remembered that ever since he started using this phone, the ringtone had basically been muted. In a few cases, the phone would vibrate, but the ringtone had never been turned on. Moreover, the ringtone that rang today was very unfamiliar to Zheng Tan. His phone had been touched. This was Zheng Tan's first guess. Previously, he had placed the phone in a small tree hole in the forest. The hole could only fit the phone and the bag that was wrapped around it. Zheng Tan could not squeeze into the hole himself. The hole was too small, so he could only hide the phone there. What was it like at the beginning? After leaving Chu Hua for so long, Zheng Tan could no longer remember. The bag that contained his phone still looked the same. Even the knot on the bag was the kind that Zheng Tan often tied. Of course, all of this was just how it looked. When Zheng Tan went over to get his phone, he did not smell anyone else. However, this did not mean that no one had been there before. Zheng Tan had been away for a season. During this period of time, wind and rain were not uncommon. Therefore, even if there was a smell, it had almost dissipated. Not to mention, the other party had deliberately lowered their presence and taken precautions. If the other party had discovered Chu Hua shortly after Zheng Tan left, the smell would indeed be hard to find. However, who could it be? A few suspects flashed through Zheng Tan's mind. The person he suspected the most was Lu Ba. Of course, it was just a suspicion. He would wait until he went to the old tile-roofed house tomorrow. Early the next morning, after the Jiao Ma and little Pomelo left, Zheng Tan followed the Jiao Pa out. They went to the teacher's cafeteria for breakfast. Then, the Jiao Pa went to the courtyard. Zheng Tan went directly to the old tile-roofed house area. At this time, there were students memorizing words in the old tile-roofed house area. It was quiet here. No one disturbed them and there was no noise. Sometimes, there were club activities in the morning. Zheng Tan walked along the route that he had taken yesterday when he came to hide his phone. At the same time, he carefully searched and sniffed around the route to see if he could find anything. He did not find anything. He ran to the tile-roofed house where he had hidden his phone. There was no smell in the tile-roofed house to prove that someone else had been there. There was the smell of rats. On the old, dusty table, there was a rat feces that had been recently pooped. It was probably because Zheng Tan had not been here for a long time that some little rats had broken in. Zheng Tan did not care about any of this. Walking out of the tile-roofed house, Zheng Tan jumped onto a stone bench and looked around. There were many places where people could hide. He could not be sure. Just as Zheng Tan was thinking, a gust of wind blew. There was the smell of students eating breakfast in the wind. Zheng Tan looked over. Not far away, there was a student holding a meat patty bought in the cafeteria and exam materials in the other hand. He was sitting on the edge of the flower bed, eating and reading. Looking at the direction of the wind, Zheng Tan thought back to the direction of the wind yesterday. When he came here last night, he saw leaves being blown away. From the direction of the leaves and the buildings here, he guessed the direction of the wind. It was said that clever predators would approach their prey in a downwind area. That way, the prey would have a hard time smelling the predator. Did this rule apply to stalkers? Last night, the downwind area was. Zheng Tan looked to one side and then walked over. As he walked, he observed the places where a person could easily hide. Then he walked over and carefully identified the smell. A cat's nose was still very good. Behind a bush that was nearly 2 meters high, there was the smell of smoke. Zheng Tan was familiar with this smell. In addition, there was also the smell of a person. Although the smell was very faint, if Zheng Tan remembered correctly, this should be. Zheng Tan suddenly turned around and looked behind him. More than 50 meters away from Zheng Tan, Lu Ba was holding a roll in a plastic bag with the words, "School Cafeteria," printed on it. She was eating as she walked over, her eyes fixed on Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan knew that he was not smart. In terms of IQ, 8 out of 10 people he knew around him could beat Zheng Tan, let alone people like Mao and Lu Ba. In fact, from the time he decided to ask Lu Ba for help before the earthquake, Zheng Tan thought that he might be discovered because of this. Lu Ba was too smart, and the possibility of being exposed was very high. However, at the same time, Lu Ba was the most suitable person to spread the news at that time. Since Zheng Tan had made a choice at that time, he did not regret it, and it was impossible for him to regret it. Zheng Tan was aware of the brief contact after the earthquake. However, there was no movement after that. Zheng Tan held a fluke mentality that fortunately, he was not discovered. Now, it seemed that he could not rely on luck. The person hiding here yesterday was Lu Ba. Zheng Tan was now sure that if Lu Ba was determined to find him, she would have the means to discover him. Lu Ba's special profession gave him more experience, tools, and channels in this regard. He just did not know how much Lu Ba knew. While Zheng Tan was thinking about how to deal with it later, Lu Ba finished eating the roll and threw the plastic bag into the trash can. Then, she continued to walk in this direction. She did not walk fast and still maintained her previous pace. However, Zheng Tan felt that Lu Ba was not calm in her heart. Anyone who knew about such a thing would not be calm. She did not know how many times her heart had been trampled on by alpacas. As Lu Ba walked closer, Zheng Tan found that Lu Ba's eyes were still bloodshot. She looked as if she had not slept for the whole night. She was hiding here last night. Could it be that she was so shocked that she did not sleep for the whole night? Zheng Tan thought to himself. Zheng Tan's guess was very close to the real situation. Lu Ba really did spend the whole night thinking in the cold wind. When she came back to her senses, the sky was already bright. She still did not feel sleepy. She went to the washroom in the student cafeteria to wash her face, bought breakfast, and continued to stay here. Sure enough, she met him. Lu Ba never thought that the owner of this mysterious phone number would be a cat. She had suspected many people, including Professor Jiao. However, all the evidence showed that this cat did it herself. Others knew nothing about this. Lu Ba stopped 2 meters away from Zheng Tan. The man and the cat confronted each other, thinking about what the other would do now. Zheng Tan thought, if this guy knows too much, should I kick him out and run away? Or should I talk to Liu Ba calmly? Playing dumb and pretending to be stupid would not work on Lu Ba. Since she could find this place and even touch the phone, how could there be no evidence? Could she not say anything? That was fine. She had Morse code. It was not like she had not used it before. However, if Lu Ba wanted to use this as a threat or wanted to make this matter public to make Zheng Tan's situation more difficult, Zheng Tan would immediately find help. Jiao Pa, Mao, Celestine, and Fong San seemed to be more reliable. Sure enough, if she knew many people, she would have a backup plan. Lu Ba saw that the black cat in front of her was staring at her and did not do anything else. She hesitated to speak. The cat's expression was not very good. Immortal? Monster? Lu Ba asked. Monster your ass. When Lu Ba saw that Zheng Tan's eyes became more dangerous, she quickly raised her hands to show that she meant no harm. Don't be agitated. Let's talk properly. However, shall we go somewhere else first? Lu Ba was talking to Zheng Tan here. In the eyes of the people nearby, she was talking to herself. They did not think that there was anything wrong with Zheng Tan. Instead, they thought that Lu Ba was a little crazy. Zheng Tan could feel that Lu Ba meant no harm. However, it was necessary to be more cautious and prepared. Zheng Tan would not follow Lu Ba. If they wanted to find a place to talk, it was safer to find a place by himself. Zheng Tan had already memorized this area. He knew where it was quiet and where there was no one at this time. After Zheng Tan walked away, Lu Ba followed him. They kept a distance of 2 to 3 meters from each other. This seemed to be their alert distance. Both of them were on guard. He took Lu Ba to a small path not far from the old tile-roofed housing area. There were several wooden chairs here. Zheng Tan jumped onto one of the chairs and looked at Lu Ba. Lu Ba sat down on another chair opposite the path and looked around. There was no one else here. They did not need to worry about being eavesdropped. After making sure that there was no one around, Lu Ba rummaged through her pockets and said to Zheng Tan, "I swear that I didn't bring any weapons or spying equipment. Only the two of us know about our conversation." Lu Ba originally wanted to say, "the two of us." However, she suddenly realized that she was talking to a cat. She changed her words in time and felt a little uncomfortable. However, Lu Ba had experienced a lot and had a strong ability to accept things. She quickly adjusted her attitude. "Let's get to know each other again. I'm happy. My surname is Gao and my name is Xing." Zheng Tan was speechless. So, the surname that she used to disguise herself was real? As Lu Ba spoke, she picked up a thin branch that fell next to the wooden chair. She used the branch to draw his name on the bare ground next to her. Chapter 354. Well, now Zheng Tan finally knew the origin of Lu Ba's name. After Lu Ba finished writing, he looked at Zheng Tan and asked, "You really can't speak?" In Lu Ba's opinion, monsters in the legends could all speak. Although he had never encountered such a thing before, he had encountered some other phenomena that were difficult to explain with science. Since he had accepted this reality, his thoughts ran in the direction of a cat demon. However, this cat had indeed never spoken, not usually, not even on the phone. Otherwise, it would not have used the more complicated Morse code to communicate and convey information. Sure enough, after Lu Ba finished asking, he received a look from Zheng Tan that said, "You're talking nonsense." Not being able to speak was one of Zheng Tan's sore spots. Lu Ba had obviously stabbed Zheng Tan in the back. It had been more than 5 years since he turned into a cat. The experience of not being able to speak human language and not being able to meow for more than 5 years really made Zheng Tan uncomfortable. "It's okay if you can't speak." After a pause, Lu Ba said again, "Are you really not a monster?" When Lu Ba first discovered the truth, he was the most shocked. Now, the most shocking moment had passed. After some time, the feeling was not as strong as at the beginning. Last night, he had been thinking about how to talk to this cat properly the whole night. He was confident in talking to humans, but he had no experience in talking to a cat. During this period, Lu Ba had recalled the situation from the first time he saw this cat until now. He remembered that he had even sprayed this cat with a water gun. Now that he thought about it, at that time, he was really looking for trouble. Zheng Tan decided to ignore Lu Ba's nonsense. Seeing Zheng Tan's impatient look, Lu Ba changed the topic to something that Zheng Tan was interested in. He talked about when he found Zheng Tan's phone, changed Zheng Tan's phone ringtone, and monitored the phone all the time. Strictly speaking, this kind of behavior was illegal. However, since Lu Ba could say it so openly, he must have removed the traces long ago. Without evidence, he could not sue this guy even if he wanted to. Of course, people like Lu Ba were the kind of people who took advantage of the loopholes in the law. Private detectives were not allowed in China, so they changed to legal identities. Consulting agencies, referral agencies, and the like, there were a lot of such things. Because of her occupational disease, once Lu Ba was certain, she would try her best to investigate. Before the earthquake, Lu Ba did not make up her mind to investigate further. After all, no one wanted their privacy to be discovered. At that time, Lu Ba did not want to offend the other party. However, after the earthquake, Liu Ba went all out. If he couldn't find the answer, he couldn't sleep well. Once he closed his eyes, he would think about the things that happened during the earthquake, as well as the phone calls and text messages. No one who had experienced that disaster could ever be the same as before. Therefore he made his move. Of course, Liu Ba didn't tell anyone else what she said, so Zheng Tan believed her. At the same time, it could also be said that they were tight-lipped due to professional reasons. If it weren't for their tight-lipped nature, there wouldn't be so many upper-class people asking them to do things for them. This made Zheng Tan feel a little better. The initial unstable emotions quickly passed. After starting, it was much easier. Unlike Ranqi, Liu Ba had a strong ability to accept things. He didn't care whether the cat in front of him was a god or a demon. As long as it didn't harm his interests, it was fine. It was also good to form a good relationship with it. Unlike Ranqi, Liu Ba didn't have many taboos about this kind of thing. Now, when Ranqi saw Zheng Tan, he still had the principle of avoiding it. After Liu Ba talked for a long time, Zheng Tan still squatted there in the same way. He didn't say anything and didn't respond to Liu Ba's words until Liu Ba talked about the safety of mobile phones. After saying so much, Liu Ba had been observing Zheng Tan. Seeing that Zheng Tan seemed to be a little interested in this topic, she planned to talk about it in detail. Of course, she wouldn't really reveal the technical aspects. Mobile phones are actually not as safe as people think. If they really want to locate and monitor your mobile phone, you can't stop them even if you turn off your phone. As for the common means, it's nothing more than a virus. Before 2004, the SMS virus stage could monitor a mobile phone with a material in it. After that, it was the deceptive virus stage and the future loophole virus stage. These were the technologies that were commonly mastered in their industry. There were other more advanced technologies that depended more on one's own ability. No one would reveal the technologies that they had mastered, and the skills that they used to make money were all kept to themselves. Especially now that smartphones are on the rise, it's very easy to get hold of them. In fact, a lot of spying technologies have been developed long ago. It's just that they will only be known to the public a few years later. Some of them will even be kept secret forever. Signal interception, interface security, text messages, email cracking, jailbreaking, and so on could all be done from this. Now that the era of smartphones was coming, people like Liu Ba were excited because it would be easier for them to take on jobs, monitor mobile phones, and locate targets. Your mobile phone isn't a smartphone, but it's not good in terms of security. It's not difficult for me to monitor it. However, we can't monitor your cat dad's mobile phone. Even if we can, it's very risky, Liu Ba said. Zheng Tan glanced at Liu Ba. In order to investigate him, Liu Ba even investigated the Jiaopa? Thinking about it, the mobile phone that the Jiaopa was using now seemed to be issued by the institute or the school. At that time, Zheng Tan only thought that it was a bonus for the year-end bonus. Now that he heard Liu Ba's words, it seemed that the mobile phone was something that protected the privacy of scientific researchers. Moreover, we usually don't do anything to the people here. Liu Ba pointed to the surroundings, which meant the area around Tsinghua University. Even if we accept a job, we will think twice. First, there are many experts in this school, and there are several well-equipped laboratories. There are capable people there, and it's not good to be caught by them. Fortunately, they didn't notice you before. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to hide. Second, there are many people in this school that I don't want to provoke and can't afford to. When Liu Ba tracked to Tsinghua University, she hesitated. After thinking about it, she decided to continue the search. Do you know that there are at least 3 people in your building that I don't want to provoke? I don't even want to investigate them. Zheng Tan was shocked. At least 3 people? Seeing Zheng Tan looking at her, Liu Ba continued, there are 2 people on the 3rd floor and 1 on the 1st floor. These are only the people that I have seen. As for those that I haven't seen, I don't know. 2 people on the 3rd floor? Old Man Lan and his wife? There was another person on the 3rd floor. Although Air Mao's family had a house outside, they would come here to stay for a few days from time to time. It was said that when his daughter Air Yuan was older next year, they would come here to stay. Could the other person be Air Mao? As for the one on the 1st floor, it should be De Pang's old lady. In our line of work, most of the time, we don't need to investigate too much. We can get preliminary information from many seemingly trivial things at a glance. Otherwise, if you provoke someone that you shouldn't provoke, you won't even know how you died. Without brains and eyesight, you won't be able to work in this line of work for long, Liu Ba said. Lu Ba always thought that she was the kind of person who had good eyesight, but unfortunately, she hit a wall when it came to this cat. However, if it was someone else, they might not be as good as Lu Ba. Who would suspect an ordinary cat? The phone used by the old lady on the first floor is not something that ordinary people can use. I can tell at a glance that this person is not someone to be trifled with. Even if I receive a related order, I will consider it carefully. Lu Ba didn't want to go against the state machine. Zheng Tan recalled the old lady's phone. He remembered that it didn't seem to have a brand. He always thought that Depang's old lady's phone was just an ordinary old man's phone. He didn't expect that the old lady's phone was even better than the Jiaopa. However, when he thought about the old lady's son's identity, it was understandable. Maybe her son was promoted again. Seeing that Zheng Tan was looking at her suspiciously, Lu Ba waved her hand and said, "We will not divulge the information of our clients, nor will we disturb unrelated people. This is an exception. Other than this incident, I really haven't investigated anyone else. We also have professional ethics." Ethics? Is this thing worth money? Zheng Tan thought to himself. But soon he thought, damn it, this world is too dangerous. I can't get a high-end mobile phone. Instead of being discovered by more people, I'd better not use a mobile phone. When he thought of Liu Ba's words that there were many capable people in the school, he felt scared. When Zheng Tan lowered his head and considered whether to throw the phone into the lake to destroy the evidence, Lu Ba poked Zheng Tan with a branch. "Hey, are you interested in joining us?" Lu Ba looked at Zheng Tan expectantly. Old people, children, and women were the kind of people that could easily make people let down their guard. Animals were even more so. Seeing that Zheng Tan was indifferent, Lu Ba continued, "This is a fast way to make money. If we cooperate, how about we split the profits 50-50? Don't worry, we won't take on dangerous jobs." Do this business? Detective? This kind of thing seemed to have been done a long time ago. He was tired of walking around the school, and it was inconvenient to walk further away. Zheng Tan didn't know if it was because he had become a cat, but he had inherited the cat's disease of pooping without curiosity and itching paws when he didn't move for a while. He always wanted to find some entertainment. However, Zheng Tan was still hesitant to cooperate with Lu Ba. Lu Ba said that it would help Zheng Tan keep the secret, and Zheng Tan believed it. However, Zheng Tan didn't want to cooperate with him for the time being. Firstly, he wasn't very familiar with Lu Ba. Secondly, he just came back and didn't want to run around until the Chinese New Year. Moreover, Zheng Tan got a lot of money from this movie, so he didn't lack money for the time being. During the Chinese New Year, he could work overtime at Xiaoguo's place and get some cash so that he could give red packets during the Chinese New Year. Zheng Tan didn't want to care about other things. Lu Ba had something to do later, and Zheng Tan didn't want to listen to Lu Ba's nagging, so they left separately. Lu Ba asked Zheng Tan to think about it. If he made a decision, he could call it directly. Zheng Tan thought about it all night. He wasn't thinking about the cooperation, but whether to throw the phone into the lake. As for the exposure, it would be fine as long as Lu Ba kept it a secret. In fact, as the old woman in the lakeside villa area said, there were more than one people around Zheng Tan who pretended to be ignorant. Even if they knew that Zheng Tan was different, they didn't say anything. Instead, they provided a lot of help openly and secretly. If things were to take a turn for the worse, he would go and look for help. The next day, Zheng Tan wandered to the old tiled house area where the phone was hidden. As soon as Zheng Tan flipped into the house, he smelled the scent of someone who had been here. It was Lu Ba. On a table in the room, there was a flip phone that looked 70 to 80% new but didn't have any special features, and a new SIM card. Zheng Tan hadn't seen the brand of the phone before. The buttons were a little bigger than the one Zheng Tan used before, so it was quite easy to press. Next to the phone and the SIM card, there was a note. "If you want to cooperate, call me." There was a smiley cat face drawn behind this sentence. Chapter 355. It was a winter afternoon and the sun was shining brightly. 4 cats were lying side by side on a wooden bench beside the withered lawn of the eastern courtyard. The 4 cats were all in the same position. They were lying on the wooden bench, basking in the sun with their paws tucked in and their eyes squinted. At first, Zheng Tan would not keep his paws tucked in like this because he looked like a cat. Zheng Tan felt a little uncomfortable. But when he saw the cats around him kicking their paws, he unconsciously followed suit. It was quite warm and not tiring to keep his paws tucked in like this. The weather was just right for him to keep his paws tucked in like this. Habit was a very scary thing. Once you got used to it, things would become natural. Now, Jing Tan often learned from them by folding his front paws and tucking them in properly. From time to time, people walked by the courtyard. They were not surprised to see the 4 cats on the wooden bench. They just smiled. Anyone who had lived in the courtyard for a long time knew about the 4 cats. For the old people here, they were already very familiar with the scenery. Perhaps when this scenery disappeared one day, people would still remember it. Although the 4 cats were all in the same position and looked like they were dozing off, the ears of the 4 cats on the bench twitched at the same time when they heard a little noise. Jing Tan did not know what the other 3 cats were thinking. He just felt that the sun was too bright and squinted his eyes to think about things. Jing Tan had not turned on his mobile phone for a week. The mobile phone that Lu Ba gave him was locked in the drawer of the old wooden table in the tile-roofed house. He had not touched it since then. Moreover, he had decided not to touch these 2 mobile phones for a long time unless there was something special. Although he wanted to use his mobile phone to send messages to the Jiao family, it seemed that he should not do so now. The old tile-roofed house would not be demolished for a while. If it was going to be demolished, a notice would be posted in advance. Jing Tan was not worried about this place being demolished. Even if he did not go there every day, as long as he went out for a walk, he would know that his mobile phone was still there. As for other things, Jing Tan did not want to care about them. Cooperation? Let's talk about it when we want to work together. Jing Tan had already deleted all the text messages and call records of the original old mobile phone. Although Jing Tan knew that professionals could also get a lot of information from it, there was no other way. Fortunately, the probability of being discovered by professionals was very small. If it was discovered, he could only ask Liu Ba for help. As long as Liu Ba didn't say anything, who would know that the real owner of the mobile phone was actually a cat? The reason why Jing Tan didn't reject Liu Ba's suggestion immediately and still kept the mobile phone was that he had a backup plan in case something really happened. He could use the mobile phone to ask for help. Jing Tan believed in Liu Ba's capabilities. After a week, Liu Ba didn't appear again. It was unknown if she was busy with a new task. While he was thinking, Jing Tan heard the owner of Sahara shouting again from the family building. Opening his eyes, Jing Tan soon saw Sahara running out like a wild horse. The more the people behind him shouted, the faster he ran. Seeing that the dog had run out of the courtyard, Sahara's owner, Ruan Ying, panted and stopped running. Seeing the 4 cats lying on the wooden chair, he slowly walked over and complained as he walked. "Damn it, isn't it just a bath? It's like he's treating an enemy." Sahara didn't dislike bathing in the summer and sometimes liked to flush the pipes. However, in the winter, it had a different attitude. When it heard the word bath, it would run away. When it was locked up at home, Ruan Ying could still block it in a corner and drag it to the bathroom. However, today he was unlucky and let it run away. Today, Ruan Ying happened to have nothing to do in the afternoon. When he came home, he saw that Sahara hadn't bathed in a long time, so he planned to give it a bath. At that time, Sahara was happily chewing on the dog food in its bowl and didn't notice Ruan Ying's actions of taking shower gel and bathing tools. Unfortunately, Ruan Ying's grandfather came back at that time. An old professor who had a good relationship with Ruan Ying's grandfather, academician Ruan, came over. When he saw Ruan Ying's gloves and tools, he said, "Ruan Ying, are you going to give Sahara a bath?" Almost in the next moment, Sahara squeezed out like a gust of wind through the gap of the door that wasn't closed yet. It didn't even care about the unfinished dog food. There was also a teacher downstairs who had just come back from outside. He opened the door and let Sahara escape. Because he knew that Sahara hated bathing when it was cold, Ruan Ying's movements were very quiet. He was afraid that he would make a sound in advance and let Sahara know. Many cats and dogs would react to certain sounds and words. In the courtyard, there was a Pekingese that hated bathing regardless of whether it was winter or summer. When it heard the sound of its special bathtub, it would immediately hide in its nest with its tail between its legs. No matter how its owner threatened or tempted it, it wouldn't go over. Every time, It would be carried out of its nest and put into the bathtub to be washed. Once Sahara ran away, it definitely wouldn't be able to catch up in a short period of time. Therefore, Ruan Ying didn't plan to chase after it directly. That would tire him to death. When that stupid dog was hungry, it would naturally come back. Under normal circumstances, Sahara wouldn't run out of the school and would hide in the school grounds. There was no need to worry. Ruan Ying looked at the 4 cats on the wooden chair and thought that Sahara wasn't as obedient as other cats. His gaze finally landed on Jing Tan and said, "Black Charcoal, when you go out to play, if you see Sahara, give it 2 slaps on my behalf. It's getting more and more disobedient. F***ck, it's too good at tormenting people." Ruan Ying was just saying this. He did not expect Jing Tan to understand. Many pet owners would talk to their pets like this. It was just a habit. He did not think that his pets would understand much. It was just like how many old people in the compound would tease Jing Tan and the other cats when they saw them, just like how they would tease a child. After Ruan Ying left, Jing Tan lay down on the wooden chair for a while. When the sun wasn't very strong at 3 or 4 o'clock, it would be a bit cold to continue squatting. Huang and the sheriff also planned to go to the forest to look for something fun to do. Both of them had short fur, but Depang's fat body was more resistant to the cold. It could maintain the same posture until the sun set. No matter how the north wind blew, it was unwavering. This endurance was probably developed from squatting instant noodles. Just like that, Depang continued to nap on the wooden chair. Huang and the sheriff went to look for some fun, and Jing Tan went out to the courtyard to take a walk. While taking a walk, Jing Tan saw Sahara. That guy was sniffing around a row of parked bicycles. Then, it looked around and walked to the side of a bicycle. It raised one of its hind legs and started to pee at the bicycle. Jing Tan, after Sahara finished peeing, it even scratched its hind legs twice. It seemed to be very happy and proud. Unfortunately, its pride didn't last long. 2 male students walked over. After seeing it, one of them immediately showed anger. **ck, that dog came to pee again. It's staring at me, isn't it? Again? Jing Tan was puzzled. Although Sahara had a bit of a bad taste and liked to play pranks, it usually wouldn't pee everywhere when it came out. Besides, it rarely ran out by itself. Most of the time, it was led out by someone. How could it pee in front of Ruan Ying and the rest? Was it looking for a beating? No wonder Ruan Ying said that this guy was becoming more and more disobedient. When she said that, Ruan Ying looked like she was gnashing her teeth. The owner of the bicycle ran over. Sahara quickly ran away when it saw people. It was different from when it ran away immediately after doing something bad. This guy ran a few steps and turned around to roar at the 2 people. When it saw them chasing after it, it ran again. When it ran a little further, it roared at them again. Was this a feud? Otherwise, Sahara wouldn't attract hatred for no reason, right? Jing Tan lay on a tree and looked at the 2 people who were cursing but couldn't catch up to Sahara. He then looked at Sahara, who was standing 100 meters away and looking at them without running. Jing Tan wondered if he should go over and take Sahara away. Then, he heard the 2 people talking in a low voice. "Hey, do you think it's because it saw us last time that it's been staring at us?" One of them said, "That can't be. Isn't it just a dog? How could it know about this? Besides, the bicycle we stole wasn't even its. Why would it care about other people's business?" The other person took out a pack of tissues and was about to wipe it, but when he saw the wet wheels and even the pedals, he frowned in disgust. He put the tissues back into his bag and kicked the bicycle. "I don't want this bicycle anymore. I'll just sell it when the time comes. It's not worth much anyway." Jing Tan listened to their conversation. When someone walked past them, they didn't say anything. When someone walked past them, they continued talking. Although their voices were very low, Jing Tan could still hear them with his hearing. So they were stealing a bicycle. Sahara probably saw them stealing a bicycle previously. He was wondering why Sahara's attitude was so bad. However, how did these 2 steal a bicycle and contact Sahara? Did they steal it to Sahara's house? Jing Tan remembered that Sahara's owner, Ruan Ying, had a 4-wheeled sedan. No one in Ruan Ying's family seemed to ride bicycles. Puzzled, Jing Tan looked at Sahara. When he looked over, Jing Tan realized that Sahara was staring at someone again. It was a female student who looked quite gentle. She was riding a bicycle, but Sahara ran over and pushed her and her bicycle, causing the girl to scream in fright. The two people who were discussing when to sell the bicycle heard the commotion. After cursing, they ran over. On the other side, there were also enthusiastic students who began to help comfort the female student who had fallen. They also had the intention of surrounding Sahara. Zheng Tan saw that something was wrong and quickly ran over. Sahara was also smart. When it saw that there were more people, it turned around and ran. This time, it didn't even stop. The surrounding students were clamoring to find the dog's owner and hold him accountable. Many people agreed and even said that they would post this matter on the school forum, warning everyone to be careful of this dog in the future. Who knows, this dog might have contracted rabies or something. There were also people who seemed to recognize Sahara. After all, Sahara had been in school for more than 5 years. It was about the same time as Zheng Tan had been here. Some students who often walked here could also recognize it. They knew that it was raised by a teacher in school, but they couldn't tell whose family it was. However, there were also people who might know. When Zheng Tan left, those people were still discussing it. Zheng Tan chased after Sahara until he reached the corner of the courtyard. Sahara hid behind a few trees. When Zheng Tan chased over, that guy was still peeking his head out. When he saw that it was only Zheng Tan coming over, his courage immediately returned. He even wagged his tail happily. It was unknown whether he was happy to see Zheng Tan or proud of what he had just done. Zheng Tan wanted to slap that dog's face a few times when he saw it. What was the use of hiding there? This guy didn't even know that he had caused trouble for his owner. Chapter 356. Sahara held grudges. Usually, Sahara seemed to be easy to get along with and played with many children in the courtyard. However, once it remembered someone, it would probably remember that person for a long time. This was the experience that Zheng Tan had in the 5 years that he had known Sahara. Based on the current situation, those people had somehow provoked Sahara. Many animals had a deep impression of people, not only from their appearance, but also from their voice and smell. No matter what, Sahara remembered those 3 people. Zheng Tan was not Sahara, and she did not understand dog language. She could only roughly decipher what they were trying to express based on her understanding of Sahara and the other dogs in the compound over the past few years. However, she did not know the cause of the matter. If she wanted to understand, she had to find out by herself. Thinking that there was nothing to do recently, and Xiaoguo's New Year's Day task had been completed, Zheng Tan had time to walk around the school. After digging in the Sahara for a while, it began to feel bored. In winter, there were no insects like grasshoppers to relieve its boredom, so it could only dig in the soil. Now that it was hungry, it planned to go home. It did not realize that it had caused trouble at all. It also did not know that it might bring trouble to its master and some people related to its master. When it was hungry, it had to eat. When it wanted to eat, it had to go home. When it went home, it began to bark to urge it to eat. This was the survival principle of every domestic pet in the city. After watching Sahara walk back to the courtyard, Zheng Tan did not follow it back. Instead, he returned to the place where Sahara had pushed the car. Now that there was no one around, the people walking around had no idea that a dog had just pushed a person over there. Zheng Tan looked around and did not see the 2 men and the woman. Seeing that it was almost time, he went back. If he went back late, he would be scolded. The next day, Zheng Tan turned on the computer when no one was at home and looked at the school forum of Tsinghua University. One only needed to look at the school forum to know whether the matter had blown up or not. Nowadays, the internet was becoming more and more advanced. Students would discuss anything on the forum. They would discuss buying a car, buying headphones, and even discussing what kind of medicine smelly feet should use. Even though it was the final exam period, the forum was still bustling with activity. It was even more lively than usual. There were people selling cheating devices, part-time scalpers selling train tickets, and groups trying to get people to go home together. Zheng Tan went online and browsed the school forum when he didn't know what to do. Turning to the relevant discussion area, Zheng Tan saw a hot post as soon as he opened it. After clicking on it, a photo of Sahara, the funny dog, was placed there. It was taken by a student when Sahara was pushing someone yesterday. The photo was not good, but people who were familiar with it could easily recognize Sahara. After all, in the school, there was only one dog with 3 bloodlines that looked like this. Other huskies and Labradors were pure. The student who posted the post was one of the passers-by yesterday. He usually liked to hang out on the school forum. He said that when he and his classmates were preparing to go shopping yesterday, they saw a dog push a girl riding a bicycle. The person who took the photo was his classmate. His words revealed his dissatisfaction with the school's incident. He was worried that the dog was sick and would hurt other students in the school. It was really a dangerous factor. Many people replied to the post. Many of them recognized Sahara. They even dug out information about Sahara's owner, Ruan Ying, and Ruan Ying's grandfather, academician Ruan. Naturally, there were some people who mocked and ridiculed. Should we go to the security office to report this matter? What's there to report? Can't you see that his grandfather is an academician? Who is academician Ruan? Is he very powerful? Brother upstairs, haven't you heard the school broadcast? You don't know about the famous academician Ruan, but this person appears quite frequently. He has given lectures and made a lot of achievements. He's a celebrity. Even my supervisor has to act like a child in front of him. There's a saying called a dog relying on its master's power. Next time, give a bad review on the internet. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding my ass. I heard that the dog is usually quite crazy. Ruan Ying is still teaching us. He's quite a good person. But I don't know about academician Ruan. I've only heard of his name, but I've never seen him. Like dog, like master. My impression of academician Ruan has dropped to negative values. A bunch of losers. If you have the guts, say it in front of him. If you have the time, why don't you go find a teacher to ask questions? Are you planning to go to class with your juniors next year if you fail? I don't know which bastard canceled the makeup exam policy. *CK. The big hot at the end of the post showed that many people were following it. From the first page to the last page, Zheng Tan realized that Sahara had probably gotten into trouble this time. Many of the students did not even know the cause of the incident and were just making a ruckus. It was probably because it was during the final exams, so some people who were under pressure decided to find entertainment here. Although it was just a dog, sometimes, a small fuse was all that was needed to explode. Unfortunately, dogs could not speak. Even if Sahara was really wronged, it could not say anything. Ruan Ying could only apologize to it. Now, academician Ruan was involved. The upper class had their own game. Although Professor Ruan was an academician, there was more than one academician in the school. There were also people who dared to go against academician Ruan. Many of the people in the post were from other factions. If they could not do research, they would use strategy. This was a common phenomenon that made people feel helpless. After turning off the computer, Zheng Tan went to Sahara's building. Downstairs, he could still hear Sahara whining from its nose. It sounded like it had been wronged. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. Letting it out would only make things more troublesome. At noon, Zheng Tan heard people in the courtyard talking about Sahara being locked up by Ruan Ying. It was estimated that it would not be released for a long time. Ruan Ying was looking for someone to apologize. In the afternoon, Zheng Tan went to the place where Sahara peed on the bicycle yesterday. There was no smell of urine on the bicycle. It was probably sold by the 2 people. After waiting for a long time, he did not see the 2 people. For the next few days, Zheng Tan wandered around the school, looking for the 3 people. Finally, one day, Zheng Tan saw them. However, they were not in the school, but near the school gate. That day, Zheng Tan went to Jiao Wei's small restaurant for lunch. On his way back, he took a look at the Wu Taro sesame cake shop. There were still many people. Although it was past lunchtime and the line was not very long, there were still 7 or 8 people in the line. A female student carrying a backpack rode her bike to the biscuit shop and stopped by a tree. She probably felt that it was too troublesome to lock her bike. Buying biscuits wouldn't take too much time, so she didn't lock her bike. She parked her bike there and walked towards the biscuit shop. When it was her turn to line up at the biscuit shop, Zheng Tan saw a person walk to the spot where the female student had parked her bike. He calmly pushed the bike away and rode away. Zheng Tan was stunned. However, when others saw this scene, they would not have any other thoughts. It was too natural. However, when the female student came back with the sesame cake and did not see her bicycle and shouted, "Where's my bicycle?" Zheng Tan knew that there was something wrong with her. The person who rode away was the female student who had pushed the bicycle with Sahara that day. Nearby, Zheng Tan also saw another face. It was the owner of the bicycle that Sahara had peed on that day. Zheng Tan did not have time to think too much. Zheng Tan could no longer see the female student riding the bicycle. The pedestrians and cars blocked his view. However, Zheng Tan could still follow the other person. The man was riding an old bicycle that looked a little shabby. He was not fast, so Zheng Tan could follow him easily. The man did not ride into the school. Instead, he rode in the direction away from the school. Zheng Tan hesitated for a moment. After all, he did not know where the two people were going. However, Zheng Tan did not think too much about it and continued to follow. Riding a bicycle would not take them far. Besides, if it was really too far, Zheng Tan would not continue to chase. Fortunately, the man did not ride far. After following for about 2 or 3 minutes, they arrived at a bicycle shop. This shop repaired bicycles and sold new and used bicycles. The shop was estimated to be about 50 square meters. It was filled with bicycles. The repair shop had a simple shed built outside. 2 students were there to pump air, and another student was pushing a bicycle to repair the chain. Inside the shop, a man in his 40s was sitting on a velvet chair and playing with his phone. When he saw the person who came, he did not say anything. He just tilted his head slightly. One look, one small movement. They both understood each other. Zheng Tan watched the man push the bicycle into the alley next to the shop. Zheng Tan followed him. Without a cat tag, no one would suspect that it was a cat. People who saw it would just think that it was someone's pet. Zheng Tan did not come out when the trouble in the Sahara Desert happened that day, so they did not see him. Therefore, when the person walking in front turned around and saw Zheng Tan, he did not think much of it. There was a small courtyard behind the shop with a 2-meter-high wall. The man opened the backyard door and pushed the bicycle in. Zheng Tan walked to the corner, jumped on the wall, and looked inside. There were 4 people standing in the courtyard, 3 men and 1 woman. They were about the same age and were talking and laughing. Zheng Tan had seen 3 of them on the day of the trouble in the Sahara Desert. The other person was unfamiliar and looked like a student. He did not dye his hair yellow and did not wear non-mainstream clothes. At first glance, no one would think bad of him. There were 2 bicycles parked in the courtyard. One of them was the one that the female student rode. The person that Zheng Tan had not seen before was wearing a blue uniform. There were tools next to him. He planned to redo the bicycle, grind off the original paint, and spray new paint. Looking at the posture of these people, he knew that they had been doing this for more than a month or 2. They were familiar with it. Judging by the calm look of the woman who had ridden someone else's bicycle, he knew that she had done this kind of thing often. She looked like a quiet girl. When the Sahara Desert pushed her down with the bicycle that day, she had attracted a lot of sympathy. But who knew that she would do such a thing? None of these people looked like they had done bad things, but that was the truth. These people had stolen a bicycle and probably provoked the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert was watching them, but the method was wrong. It could not speak, could not explain, and no one helped it. It was useless to just know that these people had stolen a bicycle. The other party had more people and more mouths, so they could defend themselves. In contrast, the Sahara Desert could be beaten to a pulp in an instant. It could only be locked at home and whimper. Zheng Tan actually wanted to pull out all the valves in the shop to piss them off, but now was not the right time. It would be easy to alert the enemy. After squatting on the wall and watching for a while, Zheng Tan quietly left. If he wanted to clear the Sahara Desert's name, he could only use evidence. As Zheng Tan ran to school, he thought, "I'm not the one who caused trouble this time. I'm just helping the Sahara Desert." At the same time, Zheng Tan had to admit that he was a little excited every time he did something like this. Chapter 357. Now that he had decided to help Sahara clear its name, Zheng Tan immediately started to act. He had to hurry up. In another week, a large number of students would start to go home. At that time, even if the truth was revealed, the effect would be much worse. If this matter could not be settled, Sahara would not be able to have fun in school in the future and would be ridiculed by others. Although it could not understand the complicated human language, many animals, especially animals that had lived in human society for a long time, were very sensitive to the emotions of people. They could distinguish between good and bad feelings. Zheng Tan had seen many examples of this, and Sahara was also one of them. It was not easy to be an animal. The thieves seemed to be planning to make a lot of money before the winter vacation because some of the more expensive bicycles would be moved to the student dormitory before the students left school. Usually, many people found it troublesome to move them up and down, especially those who lived on higher floors. However, when the vacation came, they would move them to the dormitory or the dormitory of the students who lived on lower floors to prevent them from being stolen and to prevent them from being exposed to the wind and rain outside. It was safer to put them in the shed than in the dormitory. The good bicycles were moved to the dormitory and locked up. There were also building managers keeping an eye on them. The thieves would not make a move there. As for the old bicycles that were casually left outside, they could not be sold for much money. They were not willing to do it themselves. Therefore, they would make more money during this period. Zheng Tan was not a professional in this field. In addition, he was still in this state, so the methods he could use were limited. The most powerful evidence was photos and videos. However, Zheng Tan could not install a camera or a bug here. He did not have the ability to do so without equipment. However, he could still secretly take a few photos. When it came to taking photos, it seemed that the only tool that he could use was his mobile phone. Zheng Tan came to the old tiled housing area and squatted in front of the old wooden table. He looked at the open drawer and pondered. There were 2 mobile phones in the drawer. One was the one he used to use, and the other was left behind by Lu Ba. He thought that he would not need to use it for a long time. Now, it seemed that he really had to use it. After giving it some thought, Zheng Tan decided to install the new SIM card as well. After the battery was installed, the phone was turned on. There were several applications that Zheng Tan didn't know the functions of. He tried the camera and found that the shooting function was not bad. Even if it couldn't compare to the mobile phones of 4 years later, it was still very good compared to other mobile phones of the same time period. Electronic products were being updated too quickly. 2 years ago, 3,000 to 5,000 were now available for a few hundred yuan. Zheng Tan's old phone had been considered a high-end phone back then, but now it could no longer keep up with the pace. As someone who had been through this before, Zheng Tan knew that even if he had a new phone now, it would soon be eliminated by Lu Ba. Advancing with the times was nothing more than that. Fortunately, Zheng Tan didn't have many requirements now, as long as he could make calls, send text messages, and take pictures. The old phone's pixels weren't good enough, so he could only use the 680. During the day, Zheng Tan did not dare to come openly, so he could only wait until nighttime. Zheng Tan didn't know the names of the 4 people. When they called each other, they didn't call each other by their full names. He also didn't know which school they were from. What he was sure of was that the 4 of them were students of Tsinghua University. On the way back to school, Zheng Tan saw the old car that had been urinated on by Sahara. An unfamiliar student was riding the car and chatting with his classmates. When he arrived at the school gate, he parked the car in a shed near the school gate. "Can't you ride it out? Why did you park it here?" The person riding the old car said, "Brother, it doesn't matter where you park your old car, but I can't afford to lose mine. I heard that it's not safe outside the school, so it's better to park it on campus." The person riding the old car parked it and locked it. "Last month, my girlfriend's folding car that she bought not long ago was stolen. When she bought the car, she specially bought an 80s lock. She didn't buy the 30s or 50s lock. Wasn't it stolen? It was parked near a restaurant outside, but it hasn't been found yet. It's better to park in places with cameras. The chances of it being stolen are lower." The person pointed at the camera not far away. "I think it's better to buy an old car. Look at mine. I just bought it. It's only 50 renminbi. I'm not afraid of it being stolen. Even if it's stolen, I won't feel bad. It's already good enough for this old car to be worth 30 renminbi. 50 renminbi? Did you get scammed? Where did you buy it?" "It's from the horse racing shop not far away. But they said they just changed the brakes. They even have a lock and key." Changing a wire for the brakes only costs 1 or 2 RMB at the repair shop on campus. The cost is even lower. As for the lock and key, who doesn't bring a lock and key? After the two people walked away, Zheng Tan approached the old car. There was still the smell of dog urine on the wheels. It was not easy to smell, so it should have been washed. The car was not repainted. Those people probably thought it was too troublesome. As for the horse racing shop that the student mentioned, it was the shop that Zheng Tan was watching. It was the place where the thieves disposed of the car. After dinner, Zheng Tan put on his vest and went out. He went to the old tile-roofed housing area to install his phone. Then he walked to the horse racing shop. No one noticed Zheng Tan at night. It was not easy to see through the black vest. No one would stare at a cat in the middle of the night. When he arrived at the horse racing shop, the shop was not closed yet. There were a few people sitting in the shop. Other than the shop owner that he saw during the day, Zheng Tan did not recognize the others. The 4 students who stole the car were not there. Zheng Tan entered the alley next to the shop and jumped onto the wall at the back of the shop. There were a few bicycles parked in the yard. Because they had been painted during the day, there was still some smell. The woman's bicycle that was lost in front of the shop had been changed. The original paint was worn off, and a new paint was sprayed with a different color. For many people who lost their cars, their first thought was to see if it was the same color as their car. After the new paint, it would not be so easy for the owner to see it. The yard was very quiet. There were a lot of goods and parts piled up at the back door of the shop. No one was at the back door. The back door was closed. Probably because the front door was locked, no one would care about the back door. Zheng Tan listened to the surrounding movements. After confirming that no one was nearby, he took out his phone and took pictures. If he wanted to take pictures at night, he had to use the flash. Zheng Tan was afraid that the flash would attract attention. Therefore, after taking a picture, he carefully paid attention to the surroundings. Other than the horse racing shop, he also paid attention to the surrounding residential houses and shops. After confirming that there was no abnormal movement, he continued to take a second picture. The people in the shop were playing cards. No one would have thought that at this time, there was a cat secretly taking pictures with a phone in their backyard. After taking a few key pictures, Zheng Tan jumped onto the courtyard wall and looked around. Zheng Tan planned to take a few more pictures during the day. However, it was not convenient for him to take his phone during the day. Therefore, he planned to hide his phone around tonight. He did not need to wear a vest to take pictures during the day tomorrow. The balcony on the second floor of the shop was relatively narrow. There were some things that had not been touched for a long time. The door at the back of the second floor was also closed. Looking at the marks on the door, it seemed that it was rarely opened. Zheng Tan jumped onto the balcony on the second floor and carefully cleared the messy things. In this way, the things on the side could block the view of the other residents on both sides. There was a gap between 2 boxes near the railing, which made it convenient for Zheng Tan to take pictures secretly and was not easy to be discovered by the people below. After trying it, Zheng Tan was quite satisfied. When he felt that it was enough, he put down the phone and went home directly. The phone that Lu Ba gave him had a lock function. If the correct password was not entered 3 times, it would be turned off directly and the data inside would be erased. This phone was indeed safer than other phones. It specialized in this kind of thing and was not afraid of being discovered. It would not rain tomorrow. If there was rain or snow, the 4 people would not leave the car outside. After all, this was the car that they wanted to sell. The next day, Zheng Tan did not go out immediately. Instead, he secretly went online to read the discussion about the Sahara incident on the school forum. The hot post was still there. In addition, there were posts about Wang Ying apologizing to the students in the school. Some students even asked Wang Ying to take the Sahara to the veterinary hospital for a checkup. If it was a human, the situation was similar to others saying that you were crazy and had to be sent to the hospital for a checkup. If you did not get a checkup, you were considered a lunatic and a lunatic. To humans, this was undoubtedly an insult. However, when it came to animals, it was natural. Many people asked Wang Ying to show the health records of the veterinary hospital and the recent checkup. It was as if they were unyielding. There was no way Zheng Tan would believe that no one was purposely trying to mess things up. Students would not casually force a teacher or an academician. They did not have the guts. Even if they did, they felt that it was unnecessary. However, not only did these few people say it, they even encouraged others to talk nonsense. They were just talking about the dog, but not long after, they mentioned the project funds. They were suspected of using fake bills to obtain funds for the research project. Some students had already realized that something was wrong and did not speak nonsense. There were scandals of some big shots in universities every year, and they were all famous universities. Tsinghua University had also had such scandals before. However, it was not heard of in recent years. Now that this was mentioned, it was not something that the students could control. It was fine to express their opinions after the incident, but now that the situation was unclear, it was better to remain silent. If they offended someone, they would not be able to bear the consequences. There had been many examples in the past. Young teachers had offended some big shot with prestige and status and had been ostracized and restrained. Some graduate students had been stuck for a few years because of disagreements with their supervisors. These kinds of things were common, and students would gossip about it when they got together. Although there were fewer people speaking on the forum, there were many people paying attention. The students and teachers were all watching. If they did not dare to speak, they would not be allowed to watch. Anyway, it did not involve them. They could just watch the show, right? There were even people who directly said, "Let them fight each other." It was unknown how much resentment they had. Looking at the latest discussions, no one mentioned the female student who was pushed down along with her car by Sahara anymore. Even the mention of Sahara was gradually decreasing. This could be considered to have entered the main topic of the battle, and no one knew when the school would delete the post. Zheng Tan looked for a while and was about to turn off his computer and go out. However, he saw a post that was posted yesterday. It was about a stolen car. He clicked on it to take a look. The person who posted it was a girl. She said roughly when she lost her car and where she lost it. She also posted a picture of the car and asked the students who saw it to inform her. The picture proved that it was the car that Zheng Tan saw. Zheng Tan noticed that one of the pictures that the girl posted was of the car seat. There was a string of English letters printed on the back of the car seat. It was the pinyin of the girl's name. It was written in cursive. People who did not know would probably think that it was the car's brand. This was good evidence. Chapter 358. It was not easy for Zheng Tan to find the 4 students who stole the car, and it was also not convenient to take pictures of them in broad daylight. She could only wait in the backyard of the carriage racing firm. After all, they would come back here after stealing the car. Every time they came here, they would do it together. Because every time they committed a crime, there would be accomplices around to deal with possible situations. For example, when stealing a woman's car, there would be at least one man around. If they were caught stealing a car and quarreled with each other, the 2 girls would quarrel with each other. However, the relatively weaker girls would definitely size up the situation and rarely continue to quarrel. When the man's car was stolen, the girl must have been around as well. If the car thief and the owner got into a fight, the gentle-looking girl student might be able to stop the fight. After all, most men wouldn't hit a girl. Moreover, the people here were all students, and their temperament was relatively simple. Many of them were not so bold. Most of them had the attitude of keeping the peace, which encouraged the arrogance of these people. Zheng Tan came to the back of the shop, jumped over the courtyard wall, and climbed over the second-floor balcony. The gray and inconspicuous mobile phone was lying there. After turning on the phone, Zheng Tan looked around to make sure there was no one around. Then he took the phone and went downstairs to find the car stolen by the girl who posted the post. The body of the car was newly painted, but the seat was still there. Zheng Tan hurriedly took a few more photos, and then went back to the second-floor balcony to wait there. He didn't even go to lunch. The group of people would take advantage of the opportunity when there were many students eating outside the school at noon. If Zheng Tan left now, it would be easy for him to miss them. When it was about 1 o'clock, the door of the backyard opened. It was the same 4 people who pushed the stolen car in. Zheng Tan hurriedly turned on the camera function of the phone and began to shoot. He breathed softly so that the phone could better record their voices. They were talking about how they stole the car at noon and how they were almost discovered. This car was a good one and could be sold for hundreds of yuan after being refurbished. After that, they changed the basket and seat of the bicycle with the new paint. It seemed that they did this on a daily basis. Zheng Tan was glad that he took a few more photos just now. These people were very cautious. Zheng Tan didn't know how long Lu Ba's mobile phone could record continuously. Generally, mobile phones didn't take too long to record a video. However, Zheng Tan recorded continuously for half an hour before the notification ended and he needed to start recording again. Zheng Tan was very satisfied. The clarity was good and the shooting effect was good. In the yard, a few people were laughing and talking about how much money they would get from selling the stolen cars. They would never have thought that at this moment, a cat was hiding on the balcony on the second floor, behind the pile of junk, secretly taking pictures of their every word and action. At around 2 o'clock, 3 of them left. The remaining one continued to search for new cars. Zheng Tan slipped away while the man was in the toilet. The phone was still in the same place. He couldn't take it away in broad daylight. There was nothing else to take, so he just had to come back at night to take the phone back. After leaving the car shop, Zheng Tan went straight to Jiao Wei's small restaurant. He didn't eat at noon, so he was hungry now. At this time, the peak period had expired, and there were not many students eating. When Zheng Tan arrived at the small restaurant, the last 2 students had finished eating and left. Jiao Wei's parents were cleaning up. After seeing Zheng Tan, Jiao Wei's father helped to heat up the food for Zheng Tan. Jiao Wei's mother, called Jiao Pa Black Charcoal, just came. It seems that it didn't eat. It must have been playing around at noon. I'm heating up the food for it. Zheng Tan was speechless. Auntie, can you make up a better reason? If you say that, you'll be scolded when you go back. After eating, Zheng Tan went to the racetrack to see if there were any other evidence that could be taken. He went home at around 5 o'clock to wait for dinner. At 7:30 in the evening, he put on his vest and went to the racetrack to get his phone back. He put his phone in his vest and returned to the old tiled housing area on campus. Zheng Tan lowered the volume and looked at the videos and recordings on the phone. He felt a sense of accomplishment. With these videos and an analysis of Sahara's behavior that day, he should be able to tell the truth. But soon, Zheng Tan's happy mood slowly cooled down. Then his beard trembled. He suddenly thought of a very important problem. There was no data cable on this phone. Lu Ba didn't give him a data cable. Where was the memory card? If there was a memory card, Jiao Pa seemed to have a card reader. Zheng Tan looked through the phone. After studying for a long time, he only found the place to put the calling card. He didn't see the memory card. Looking at the data interface, he knew that it wasn't an ordinary data cable. If he couldn't find the card or the data cable, how could he release the evidence he had? There was a Bluetooth function on the phone, but the Jiao family's desktop didn't have it. Zheng Tan was vexed. However, after thinking about it carefully, using the Jiao family's desktop to release these things was a little too eye-catching. After all, it was the campus's intranet. If they wanted to find out who posted these things, they could easily find out. Zheng Tan wasn't a computer expert, so he couldn't deal with those professionals. It wouldn't be good if these things caused trouble for the Jiao family. Although the Jiao Pa was doing well now, he was still a far cry from people like Academician Yuan. Now, the higher-ups were fighting silently. If the Jiao Pa was targeted, it wouldn't take much effort. During the selection or other small issues, the Jiao Pa would be very busy. It would be good if Academician Yuan was behind the scenes. Unfortunately, some trouble was inevitable. The Jiao Pa had his own plans and pace. Zheng Tan couldn't interfere with the Jiao Pa's plans. This matter was handled by Zheng Tan himself. It had nothing to do with the Jiao Pa. What should he do? Zheng Tan stared at the mobile phone that was playing the video in a low voice. He thought about it and decided to let Lu Ba handle this kind of thing. Did Lu Ba expect today's problem when she left the mobile phone to him? It was too tiring to deal with people with high IQ and flexible minds like them. Zheng Tan sighed in his heart. No matter what, since he had been busy for so long, there was no reason to give up now. Zheng Tan sent a text message to Lu Ba. Lu Ba replied very quickly. He was not in the city and was busy with an order. However, he asked Zheng Tan to send the video directly to him using a software installed on his mobile phone. Lu Ba, who was out of the province, could download the video sent by Zheng Tan and post it on Tsinghua University's campus forum according to Zheng Tan's expectations. Zheng Tan had never seen that software before. Even before he turned into a cat, he had never seen or heard of it. However, since Lu Ba said that it was okay and that it was safe, Zheng Tan had no other choice but to send it directly. While sending the video, Zheng Tan was thinking about how much it would cost based on the amount of data. However, he could continue to send messages after sending the video. He did not receive any notification that he owed money. Zheng Tan did not care much about it. If something happened, Lu Ba would take care of it. After uploading the video, Zheng Tan also edited some relevant information for Lu Ba. Lu Ba said that it would be done tonight. However, Zheng Tan could not go online tonight. He could only wait until tomorrow morning to see how things went. As for the data cable, Lu Ba could not do anything now. It only told Zheng Tan where the memory card was. This was not an all-in-one phone. It was installed with a memory card. However, it was hidden, so Zheng Tan did not find it. According to Lu Ba's instructions, Zheng Tan spent some effort to find it. His claws were not flexible, so it was not convenient for him to play with the phone. Fortunately, he found the place in the end. Lu Ba told Zheng Tan not to use it casually. If he needed help, he could ask for it directly. Zheng Tan thought about it and agreed. With his rubbish technology, he should not waste his time. After arranging everything, Zheng Tan turned off the phone and went back. He broke the battery of the new phone and brought it back. He would use Jiao Ma's all-purpose charger at home tomorrow. Fortunately, the battery could be used in this way. Otherwise, it would be useless if there was only a phone without a data cable or a charger. On the other side, after sending the message and downloading the video, Lu Ba suddenly realized that it did not seem to treat the other party as a cat. It felt like it was chatting with a familiar friend. For example, it felt like it was chatting with a gold tortoise. Lu Ba shook its head with a smile and continued to do its own thing. As long as it did not harm its own interests, it would have more friends and more helpers. From the messages Zheng Tan sent to it, Lu Ba sorted out an article. It inserted many pictures and embedded a few video links. Even if someone deleted the post, they could go to the video website to watch it. The videos posted on the video website could not be deleted easily. In addition, Lu Ba asked the gold tortoise to investigate the carriage racing company. Soon, there was relevant information, and Lu Ba put it in the article. After clicking on the post, Lu Ba thought that Tsinghua University would be lively again. Unfortunately, no one would think of a cat. Lu Ba was excited. It looked through the recent posts on Tsinghua University's forum and grinned. It seemed to be fun. It was waiting to watch the show. The next day, the students of Tsinghua University went crazy. Whether it was those who had not finished the exam, those who had finished the exam and were about to go home, or those who were already at home in front of the computer, all of them went crazy because of the post. Most of the people who were angry were the students who had lost their cars, especially those who had just lost their cars. Whether it was the 4 people who did it or not, it was all on them. As for the others, they felt that the 4 people had embarrassed Tsinghua University and made them lose face. Now, many people in the university were laughing at them. This person with the ID of HT posted a detailed description of the campus car theft gang and the horse racing company. The 4 people who had stolen the cars were also found out. The female student who had lost her car in front of the pancake shop went directly to the female student who had stolen the car and made a scene in the dormitory. It was said that the scene was very lively, and there were pictures on the forum to prove it. Many of the people who had lost their cars were boys. Boys could not be calculative with girls. Even if they were angry, they could not directly vent their anger on girls, right? Therefore, a group of people went to block the other 3 people. Perhaps for many people, it was just a car. Was there a need to make such a scene? But for students, buying a car that was worth 200 to 300 yuan took a long time to negotiate the price. Not long after they bought it, it was stolen. Others could not understand this feeling. When the resentment accumulated to a certain extent, once there was a vent, it would be difficult to control it. It had to be said that these 4 people had not restrained themselves during this period of time. According to the post, these 4 people had stolen nearly 300 cars. A good car could be stolen and sold for 200 to 300 yuan or even more. There was once when they sold a car that was more than 1,000 yuan. A substandard car, even if it was only a few dozen yuan, was still a lot of money. Especially for these students who had not entered society and did not have much income, it was even more unacceptable. You want to use my car to fill your pockets? I'll beat you up no matter what. Students should understand each other? Understand your sister. Acting pitiful? But, you know you're wrong? I'll spit again. Take the initiative to admit your mistakes and resolutely not do it again. Who are you trying to fool? On the new post, there was a photoshopped picture and a caption. Chapter 359. The exposure of the school car theft gang gave a group of students who were waiting to go home after their exams something to pass the time. In a certain male dormitory, a person sat in front of a computer, eating a piece of fried chicken delivered by takeout. There was a bottle of beer next to him. His legs were on the table, and his fingers were typing on the keyboard. His roommate behind him walked over and stared at the screen. Your words are sharp. Who are you talking about? From the pure hearts of kindergarten children to the great harmony of social development? Someone stole cars from our school. There are more than 300 cars. Why are you so agitated? It's not like they stole your car. Watch your words, young man. A gentleman does not speak ill of a friend. Have you heard of that? Brother, have your sneakers been taken by someone before? Have your clothes been taken by someone while you were drying them? Have your quilt been stolen or your water bottle taken? It's the same experience. No, it's worse than stealing your quilt. *CK. This experience is too deep. Reprimand. Reprimand. *CK off, you're too slow. Let me do it. Gentlemen cut ties? *CK. There were many similar situations. Many students were talking about it when they visited their classmates' dormitories. It was the end of the year, and there was nothing else to do except for this big incident. Maslow's theory divided the needs of life into 5 levels. From low to high, they were physiological needs, safety needs, belonging and love needs, respect needs, and self-actualization needs. College students were at the 2nd and 3rd levels of life needs, and were gradually moving towards the 4th and 5th levels. They were also a group of people who were easily affected by emotions. Many times, the first thing they thought of was not how to cover up the scandal, but how to look at the big picture. Their parents had let go, and they were semi-exposed to society. Their edges had not been smoothed out, and they boldly expressed their opinions based on their likes and dislikes to vent their emotions. Just like now, many people were thinking about how to reduce the bad influence of the school, but more people would directly express their thoughts. They would scold when they needed to and had no intention of hiding it at all. The racing car store was splashed with smelly water, thrown things, and written with paint many unsuitable words for children. Don't think that the students of famous schools were a bunch of obedient children. There were many who could cause trouble. Some people said that the people of the racing car store were from the underworld, but so what? Not everyone was afraid of them. After that, the police got involved in the investigation. The school took this matter very seriously. They had no choice but to take it seriously. 2 days later, when Zheng Tan went out again, he found out that the shop had been closed. He heard that the shop owner had been taken away by the police. The 4 students from Tsinghua University who stole the car were expelled from school. They were taken away along with the shop owner for investigation. Generally, the school would punish students by warning, recording demerits, probation, expulsion, and so on. Expulsion was a very serious punishment. After being expelled, the school would not recognize you as a student. All your previous grades and honors would be nullified and recorded in your files. It would be impossible for you to join the army. The political background check would be directly ignored. It was said that during the investigation, those students gave up a few more names, including other students from their school, from other schools, and from other nearby car dealerships. On the day of the investigation, another car shop near the school was closed, and the owner ran away in the middle of the night. They were able to do all this because the boss of the car dealership helped them. Sometimes there were orders from customers. They would steal whatever car they wanted. Even if these students graduated, the people of the car dealership would recruit new students to join them. In short, there were many people doing this. The racing car store had been operating near the school for many years, and many students were involved. Many people did not understand why the students were still stealing cars when the school had been promoted to such a high level, and it was a famous school. Later, according to those students, it was because the money came quickly. Most of the time, they could earn more than 10,000 yuan a month. Of course, when the money was divided, it might not be so much. But for many students, especially those who did not have good family conditions, this was a good income. But poverty was not a reason to steal. Wang Xing's family conditions were not good either. That child would come here to pick up bottles from time to time. What about these favored children? Using the words of the older generation, intelligence is not used on the right path. No matter how good the school was, there were many people with bad character. One's character was never proportional to one's ability. Actually, when many students bought cars, they knew that there was something fishy about those second-hand or refurbished cars. But it did not affect their own interests, and they could spend less money to buy a car that looked newer. Who would be willing to be a busybody? It was only because of this incident that they opened their mouths. Some things were impossible to guard against. Even if it was a stolen bicycle, no one would stop it. Tsinghua University was so big, and it was impossible to strictly check every bicycle that came in and out. Only when there were some suspicious situations, such as when the lock was not opened, would the person carrying the bicycle out be checked and registered. This incident was undoubtedly a slap in the face to the security office. The security office also told everyone that there would be more cameras after the new year, and places like the car sheds and dormitories were the focus. As for Sahara's incident, a student posted a post explaining it. He had already returned home and did not go online for a few days. He only found out when his classmate called him after the car theft incident. After he found out, he quickly found an internet cafe to post the truth. It turned out that it was one of Ruan Ying's students. They often went to play basketball with Ruan Ying, and Sahara was tied up next to the basketball court. One day, everyone was playing basketball, and there were many people around. They heard Sahara's scream but did not pay attention. When Ruan Ying followed the sound, the student's car was long gone. Perhaps it was at that time that Sahara targeted those people. Every time he saw them, he would target them. Ruan Ying did not think much of it. After all, they were all students, and they did not look like bad people. Things were clear now, and Sahara was no longer a mad dog. Not only that, but he was also praised by many people. However, whether it was criticism or praise, Sahara, who was locked up at home, did not know. The school forum gradually calmed down. After the students caused a ruckus, they rushed home for the new year, and the number of people in the school gradually decreased. Sahara had been taken out, and the rest of the silent battle was left to Professor Ruan and the others. The other small fries would only be cannon fodder. No matter which circle it was, to climb to a certain height, one had to go through countless battles. For example, Jiao Pa had a competitive relationship with some of the teachers in the institute. When dealing with legitimate competition, one had to guard against unfair competition. Although it was good to be kind to others, it was always good to be careful. Just like what Jiao Pa said to his graduate students, when you are a student, you can still focus on scientific research, but when you become a teacher, you may not have the time and mentality to do so. One day a week later, Zheng Tan returned to the courtyard after taking a walk outside. He bumped into Ruan Ying, who was carrying bags of various sizes. Compared to a week ago, when the matter was at its peak, Ruan Ying was in a much better mood. When he saw Zheng Tan, Ruan Ying waved his hand. "Black charcoal, let's go. Let's go play with Sahara at home." Zheng Tan also wanted to see how Sahara, who had been cooped up at home all this time, was like. After Ruan Ying called out, Zheng Tan followed along. Walking beside Ruan Ying, Zheng Tan saw the things in the plastic bags and recognized some of them from the smell. Ruan Ying was carrying chicken liver, peanuts, walnuts, sausages, etc. He followed Ruan Ying to Sahara's house. When he entered, he saw Sahara lying on the sofa. Normally, he would jump at the door when he heard movement, but now, he just looked up and lay down again, looking listless. "Sahara, black charcoal is here." Ruan Ying went over and rubbed Sahara's head. Unfortunately, Sahara only swung his tail and was still listless. I know. I wronged you. You've been wronged. I'll cook dog food for you. Ruaning said. Sahara's nose twitched, but he still didn't get up. After Ruaning went into the kitchen, Zheng Tan came in front of Sahara. The guy just raised his eyelids and continued lying down. Did he really suffer a blow? Most pets like cats and dogs might have been wronged in their lives. If it was a human, you could tell them, if you've been wronged, just say it. But animals couldn't. No matter how intelligent a pet was, it couldn't express its thoughts through human language. Of course, it was a different story for creatures like the general who were naturally gifted in languages and had high intelligence. If you wronged it, it would immediately start a war of words with you. It would spout a bunch of nonsense that it had heard from somewhere, and it would even have a local accent. It was said that once, General's owner, Professor Tan's child, went to a milk tea shop to buy milk tea. The shop would give customers a cardboard card the size of a bank card. There were 30 slots on the back of the card. Each time he bought it, he would stamp it with a small stamp. When all 30 stamps were filled, he would get a free drink. When General followed Professor Tan's child, he grabbed the card and flew to the cashier. He said to the cashier, "Here, stamp it." The cashier listened a few times but didn't understand what the bird was saying. She thought that General didn't speak properly. In the end, when Professor Tan's child went over to explain, she realized that the bird was speaking in a local dialect. Did you say that it was unintentional? Or was it showing off? Or was it showing off? Or was it playing cheap? Zheng Tan was more convinced that the bird was playing cheap. From the very beginning, Zheng Tan did not like the general because he could speak human language. Zheng Tan, who used to be a real human, now possessed the inner qualities of a human. Not only could she not speak human language, she could not even meow like a cat. Among Zheng Tan's cats and dogs, only the sheriff had good language talent and could meow at the dogs. The others couldn't. Cats meowed, dogs barked. Zheng Tan didn't know how to meow at all. This was a rather depressing fact. Since she had not been driven crazy, Zheng Tan felt that her mental endurance was still quite strong. He looked at Sahara, who was lying on the ground without roaring or rebelling. At first glance, he thought that it had been wronged. If he looked closely, he would find that this fellow's eyes kept drifting to the kitchen. Its ears were also moving to pay attention to the movements in the kitchen. Zheng Tan raised his hand and touched Sahara's ear. It was hot. Suddenly thinking of something, Zheng Tan touched his ear again. It was cold. As he pondered the question of why a dog's ear was hot while a cat's ear was cold, Zheng Tan noticed that Ruaning had come out with a bowl of rice. Sahara, who had been listless just now, stood up and wagged its tail happily. Its mouth was moving. Not feeling wronged anymore? Ruaning asked. Woof. Sahara jumped up and barked. Ruaning placed the bowl in front of Sahara. Sahara didn't care about anything else and started eating. From the way its tail wagged, it was obvious that this fellow was in a good mood. A bowl of food, 2 sentences, a few pats, and a few strokes of its fur. It was immediately revived. Perhaps this was why many people like dogs. Feeling wronged. Chapter 360. Just like the past few years, they went back to Jiaopa's hometown for Chinese New Year. Compared to last year, Zheng Tan finally gave out the highest red packet this year. Jiao Yuan still felt awkward when he received the red packet. Little Pomelo didn't say anything, but when Zheng Tan returned home, he saw little Pomelo putting the red packet with the money into her piggy bank. There was still the red packet from last year in there. Only Jiao Yuan, little Pomelo, and Jiaopa knew about Zheng Tan's red packet. Jiaoma didn't know about it, or she would scold her for a long time. After the Chinese New Year, everyone got busy. Some went to work, while others went to school. Zheng Tan was also busy because someone came to him. Yang Yi was the middleman. The one who really came to Zheng Tan was Li Wei. Li Wei wanted to take a set of photos with animals. It seemed like it was to promote animal protection. Before coming to Zheng Tan, Li Wei had also taken photos with other animals. Although there were several animals, there was only one choice in the end. She chose a photo that was likely to be on the cover of a fashion magazine. This made Xiaogua very excited. Although it had nothing to do with him, Zheng Tan had signed a contract with his studio. He also had some responsibility, so he paid a lot of attention to this matter. There was a special photography team following Li Wei. They would follow Li Wei to different places to take photos because it was inconvenient for animals like Zheng Tan to go out. Zheng Tan was sent by Xiaogui to Li Wei's studio in Chuhua City. There were several foreigners in the photography team, and they had to go through a few days of training before taking photos. Zheng Tan didn't know if the animals that he had taken photos with Li Wei had also gone through this training. He only knew that Li Wei's company paid a lot of money this time, and there was also free training. Zheng Tan didn't care. After all, to him, it was just a little boring. When he received the task, Zheng Tan was wondering if he had to walk on the catwalk. However, when he arrived, he realized that he was just following the instructions of those people and making a few poses with Li Wei. It had to be said that a supermodel was indeed a supermodel. Just by standing there, she had an imposing aura. In order not to be outdone by Li Wei, Zheng Tan restrained her indifference. Since she had accepted this assignment, she had to take it seriously. After all, this was related to the prize money. After the photo shoot, Li Wei gave Zheng Tan a red envelope. The money in the red envelope was enough to make up for the red envelopes that Zheng Tan had given out during the new year. This made Zheng Tan very happy. Li Wei and her company's staff didn't stay in Chuhua City for long. They were in a hurry as Li Wei had a show in the near future. Xiaogui said that if Zheng Tan and Li Wei's photos were selected, Zheng Tan would be rich. There would be other unimaginable opportunities. Zheng Tan didn't really care. As for the opportunities that Xiaogui mentioned, if it was to shoot a movie again, Zheng Tan didn't want to go again. This kind of experience was enough. He didn't want to specialize in this field. Unlike Cheetah, Li Wei's appearance didn't make much difference to Zheng Tan's life. Zheng Tan was still Zheng Tan, a cat in the courtyard that looked like an ordinary house cat. In the warm spring season, the campus was always more lively, whether it was people or animals. Zheng Tan went out for a walk and came back. He walked downstairs to Depang's balcony and took out his access card and key. He was about to enter the building when he heard a voice from the 4th floor. "There's a monk picking water to drink, he picking water to drink." A bald head came out from the balcony on the 3rd floor and shouted at the 4th floor, "If you sing this song again, I'll go up and pluck your feathers." The B***Ts bird on the 4th floor looked out from the cage and said, "Bald donkey." Zheng Tan and Air Mao were speechless. Air Mao wanted to curse, but considering that his daughter was at home, he swallowed the F***ck that jumped out and said to the 4th floor, "Just you wait." F***ck, why hasn't my hair grown out yet? Air Mao thought angrily. Air Mao brought his wife and child to live in the courtyard when the weather turned warm in March. It was still the 3-floor apartment that he rented before. The original owner of the apartment had already taken away many things and cleared out a room. The study was changed into a baby's room. The nanny hired for the 2nd bedroom, Black Rice, was also brought over. Because it had lived here before, it was familiar with the smell. Black Rice adapted quickly and didn't cry out anxiously because of the change of place. With the nanny helping to clean up, the house wasn't as messy as before. After all, Air Mao was a married man with a child. Compared to his unruly self in the past, the current Air Mao was much more mature. Of course, if it wasn't for the bald head, some people would still believe that Air Mao had matured. But with the bald head, the smell changed. Speaking of Air Mao's bald head, it was his daughter's birthday this year. Air Mao was so happy that when he blew out the candles for his daughter, he got too close and the candles burned a tuft of hair in front of his head. Fortunately, it wasn't burned and nothing happened. Air Mao simply shaved his head bald. The 1-year-old Air Yuan would slap her father's bald head twice and slap it loudly. Air Mao didn't get angry and just let her slap it. Did his daughter think that his long hair was too prickly? Shave it again. Just like how the 3rd Master Fong doted on his daughter, he let them pull his hair and slap his face. As long as his daughter was happy, nothing was a problem. His wife and daughter didn't mind Air Mao's bald head, but this bald head often gave people a bad first impression. For example, a few days ago, Air Mao brought his daughter to see a flower show. When they came out, they were stopped by the guards there. Even the police who happened to be patrolling the area came over to ask about the situation. They asked Air Mao to show his identification and looked at him suspiciously. With a shaved head and sunglasses, he didn't look like a decent man. He was also carrying a clean and beautiful girl in his arms. No matter how you looked at it, it was suspicious. In addition, there were a few cases of child trafficking before the new year, so Mao was stopped directly. This incident was often laughed at by Qin Tao and the others. They said that Mao wasn't suitable for shaving his head. Therefore, Mao decided that unless his hair fell out naturally, he shouldn't learn to shave his head. Because his wife and her friend went abroad to attend a cat show, Mao directly brought his daughter to live in the courtyard of Tsinghua University. Compared to the environment and atmosphere in his home, he preferred this place. There were more children here, and the people around were good. Mao didn't expect his daughter to be knowledgeable and versatile in the future. As long as she was healthy, it would be fine. This place was just a supporting role. Mao's parents were quite supportive of this. Nowadays, the relationships between neighbors in many communities were very indifferent, and people didn't know each other well. In addition, Mao's parents didn't believe in Mao's character. If they could grow up in a good environment, at least their granddaughter wouldn't be as ugly as her father, right? But Mao didn't expect that the bird on the 4th floor would mock him as soon as he moved in. Why did it have to sing monk of all things? Wasn't it obvious that it was being sarcastic? Now, even Bald Donkey came out. This was too much. Except for the problem with this B*TCH bird, Mao felt that life here was quite harmonious. With a nanny, he didn't have to worry about food and drink. He just needed to take care of his daughter every day. Although Mao didn't seem to be working every day, his wallet was always full of money. Once in a while, he checked the money in his bank card. Oh, there were hundreds of thousands more. Even Mao's parents didn't know how much investment Mao had made. In the past, the old couple urged Mao to do something serious to save money to marry a wife. Now, Mao's wife was married and had a child. Their wallet was full, so the old couple didn't care about Mao anymore. Instead of getting a headache every time they talked about Mao, it was better to talk about their granddaughter. Every afternoon, Mao would bring his daughter downstairs to exchange experiences with other people in the courtyard who brought their children out for walks. The old people in the courtyard were very enthusiastic about these children. Mao even put Yuan on the back of Little Blossom a few times. Many children in the courtyard liked Little Blossom very much. Compared to the bull-headed terrier Zhuang, who was small in size, deformed, and fierce in many people's eyes, Little Blossom was a gentle big fellow and was very popular among the children. Of course, not many parents would let their children interact with bull-headed terriers. Everyone knew that this kind of dog wasn't easy to get along with. Moreover, bull-headed terriers did bite people more than once. This morning, Zheng Tan planned to go out for a walk. When he went downstairs, he saw Mao moving a 4-wheeled children's princess car downstairs. After moving it, Mao went upstairs to pick up his daughter. Was he going to walk the child again? Zheng Tan had tried to lift the car before. It was about 30 kilograms. Because it didn't look conspicuous, he thought it would be the same as the plastic cars the children in the courtyard used. He didn't expect that it would be heavier. Mao didn't find it troublesome to move it up and down several times a day. If one looked closely, they would find that there was something special in the baby car. Many protective measures were well done. It was definitely sturdier and safer than it looked. After Mao carried Yuan downstairs, he let Yuan open the door and climb into the car. Yuan was a little over a year old, not even a year and a half. She could walk, but she couldn't run. It was a little strenuous for her to get into the car. However, probably because she had done this before, she was familiar with the series of movements. Mao helped her when she couldn't climb in. After Yuan got into the car and sat down, Mao asked her to fasten her seatbelt. Zheng Tan looked. There was indeed a seatbelt. The equipment was quite complete. Mao was wearing a set of sportswear today. After everything was ready, he took out a small remote control and started walking. At the same time, the princess car that Yuan was sitting in started moving. Using a car to walk children seemed to be more common now. It wasn't as rare as when little kitten Zhui used to be. This method was also liked by many young parents. When Mao ran faster than the car, he would slow down and change from running to walking. When the car came over, he would start jogging again. No matter what, Mao wouldn't let the children's car get away from him. Yuan seemed very excited. She wasn't afraid at all and kept smiling. Sometimes, she would even pat the steering wheel that didn't really work. Zheng Tan looked at the two of them. Taking a child for a walk so early in the morning, they were really in the mood. Chapter 361. In April, all the smiling flowers in the school had bloomed. One could smell their fragrance on the streets. Mao steered his daughter's car and drove on a path with few people. On the main road of the school, cars and pedestrians came and went in a hurry. It was not safe and there was also car exhaust. The path was different. It was safe and quiet. There were many flowers and trees and the air was better. Mao taught his daughter how to recognize things as they walked. Trees, birds, flowers, clouds. Mao taught a word and Mao would say it. If it was not right the first time, he would teach it a second time and a third time until it was right. Zheng Tan used to think that Mao was unreliable. He did not expect him to be so patient with his daughter. When he was raising black rice, he seemed to be quite patient too. He taught her as they walked and even took a few photos with his camera. Mao had taken many photos of black rice's daily life when he was raising black rice. Now, his pleasure was to take photos of Mao and black rice. To Mao, repeating the same thing every day was a pleasure. As they walked, Mao paused. He stopped Mao's car and looked ahead with a frown. Zheng Tan's ears twitched. He also heard something unusual in front of him. Ouch! A person rolled down the slope at the fork in front. His face was bruised and his body was in a mess. It was obvious that he had just been beaten up. Zheng Tan could smell alcohol and some other unpleasant smells from the wind blowing over. After that person, another 3 people jumped down from the slope and kicked the person who was rolling on the ground a few more times. They were also cursing him. Before the people in front started to punch and kick, Mao put his hand into the children's car to cover Mao's eyes. He tried to talk to Mao to distract him. At the same time, he used his other hand to control the children's car and was about to leave. He did not care about this kind of thing. Unexpectedly, the person in front saw Mao and walked over. He looked angry. His long sleeves were rolled up, revealing the tattoo on his arm. Mao frowned even harder. He turned the children's car so that Mao could not see the person who was walking over. "Hey you!" The person pointed at Mao. To be exact, he pointed at the digital camera hanging around Mao's neck. "You took a picture, didn't you?" What the man meant was that Mao had taken a picture of what they had done and wanted to check it. However, from what Zheng Tan saw, he didn't just want to check if there were any photos taken of them. From the look in his eyes, it was obvious that he wanted to take the camera for himself. After all, this was an SLR camera, and it was a famous brand. It was worth a lot of money. Zheng Tan looked around. Although last year's car theft incident had caused the school to install surveillance cameras in some of the car sheds and dormitories, there were no cameras installed in remote and quiet places like the small paths. The students probably didn't think much of it. After all, there were many people doing things that were not suitable for children in these remote places. There were no cameras. Other than when the security guards were patrolling, no one would pay attention to this side. If they accidentally bumped into a young couple, they would be scolded by the students for being nosy and not doing their job properly. At this time, there were not many people here, and there was no one else on this road. If it was just Mao alone, Zheng Tan was not worried. Mao could definitely deal with them easily, but now Mao had his daughter with him. Mao saw the person approaching, and the other 2 people who were kicking people over there also looked over. Mao looked around and smiled. He seemed to be trying to curry favor with the person. He looked very nervous as he said to the person, "Big brother, can we find a place to talk? This is not a good place." Mao pointed at the road. There were cars passing by at the intersection they had just passed. The person probably thought about it and didn't want to make things known, so he nodded. In their view, this was just a young teacher in the school. Generally speaking, students and young teachers were more timid and easy to bully. After Mao finished speaking, he took out his phone to check the time and put it back in his pocket. This made the person's eyes brighten. The phone was also a good phone. Maybe he even had money on him. It seemed that he had a lot of money. Because Mao was misunderstood because he shaved his head, he always wore a hat when he came out in school. Today, he didn't wear sunglasses. Since he was young, it was understandable that he was mistaken for a teacher in the school. The man pointed to a spot on the slope. There were also some stone tables and benches. Usually, there would be some students sitting there for their morning reading. But today, probably because of these few people, there was not a single student there. Black Charcoal, help me look after Yuan. Mao pushed the children's stroller to the side near the lawn. This way, it would not be easy for the stroller to slip. Then he walked up the slope with the leader. Yuan was still looking left and right for Mao. Zheng Tan poked a little doll tied to the stroller to attract Mao's attention, so that the little guy wouldn't cry. At the same time, Zheng Tan also pricked up his ears and listened carefully to the movements on the slope. If Mao was alone, the three people over there could be easily dealt with. The three guys looked fierce, but in reality, they were far inferior to those who really fought. They were only strong on the surface. It was okay to bluff those naive students, but to pretend in front of an expert, it could only be said that they had a death wish. The truth was just as Zheng Tan thought. Mao knew very well how strong the three of them were. He was confident that he could deal with them. In addition, he was worried that Yuan would cause trouble if he left for too long, so he quickly went up the slope. He wasn't afraid of being found out. He just didn't want Yuan to see such a violent scene. Looking at the three guys who were curled up like shrimps on the ground, Mao picked up a business card on the ground. It had fallen from the leader, and there were the words, XX Guarantee Investment Company, on it. I thought it was a loan shark, Mao said disdainfully. No, they're just helping debt collectors. The man said with some difficulty. He wanted to defend himself, but Mao quickly interrupted him. It's none of my business if you're a loan shark or a debt collector. Mao raised his hand and patted the man's face. You don't even know what to do. You're blind. When I came out, you were still in some corner. You're not even older than me. The leader cursed in his heart, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. Otherwise, he would be greeted with more than just 2 punches. He thought that this person was a young teacher who was easy to deal with. Now that he took off his hat and revealed his short hair, which looked like he had just been released from prison, coupled with his bandit aura, the leader was about to vomit blood in his heart. F***ck, he shouldn't have come out today. Why did he come here so early in the morning to collect debts? Mao didn't want to bother with these 3 small fries anymore. He quickly put on his hat and punched again. If it was before he got married, he wouldn't have punched so lightly. At least there would be blood. Now, he didn't want his hands to be stained with blood. He still had to push his daughter's stroller. He flicked the leaves and invisible dust off his body and walked quickly to the children's stroller. As for the person lying in the middle of the path, Mao didn't even look at him. There were too many temptations in this society. Many people found it hard to resist and gradually became addicted to it, especially those students who had weak resistance to temptation but wanted to enter the world of sensual pleasures. It was acceptable for people who borrowed money because of their family's financial situation. However, Mao wouldn't even look at people who loitered around sensual places and borrowed money because of some bad habits. In order to avoid the sensitive words, usury, many private usury companies would put up signboards such as investment company or guarantee company. However, private usury companies had developed to this point, and it was difficult to find loopholes in them. Whether it was the IOU or the mortgage procedures, they were very complete. Moreover, these companies avoided all risks when dealing with loan sharks. It was difficult to win a lawsuit. Private loan sharks were not under the supervision of the Banking Regulatory Bureau. Loan companies under the supervision of the Provincial Finance Office needed to obtain a business license, and the examination and approval were very strict. Private loan sharks were obviously illegal, but it was difficult to forcibly stop them. As for these people who helped to collect debts, guarantee companies worked with debt collection companies the most. If they helped to collect debts, if something happened, the loan shark company would be able to get rid of the trouble easily. It was a win-win situation. These 3 people were just small fries in the debt collection company. They couldn't cause any waves and didn't dare to take revenge. Mao could see this, so he didn't need to spend too much effort. With Yuan Air's hearing, it was difficult to hear what they were saying. However, Zheng Tan heard the conversation between Mao and that person clearly. However, he didn't think too much about it. After Air Mao came over, he left. In the next few days, Zheng Tan didn't see the three people when he walked around the school, so he threw this matter to the back of his mind. At the end of May, Zheng Tan heard from little Pomelo that little Pomelo was on leave recently. He was a little worried and planned to go there. If he couldn't find her at school, he would go to the blind old man to take a look. Unexpectedly, near little Pomelo's school, Zheng Tan saw the three people who helped to collect debts that Air Mao had taught a lesson to. In the middle of the three people, there was a bearded man in ragged clothes. Zheng Tan had never seen him before, so he didn't have a good impression of him. The four of them were nestled next to a shop near the school. They looked impatient as they looked at the school gate. The ragged man was trembling with fear. He was very afraid of the three people. The four of them seemed to be waiting for someone. Zheng Tan carefully approached them and eavesdropped on their conversation. "Who is it? Did you see her? Are you King lying to us?" The leader said in a bad tone. "No, definitely not. Her sister said she saw her going to school here." The man in ragged clothes cowered. "Then why don't I see her? Go in and ask her to come out." "I don't know which class she's in. I only know that she's called Huang Jiao now." Zheng Tan was shocked. Huang Jiao wasn't that little Jiao? That person? After eavesdropping on their conversation, Zheng Tan found out that the bearded man was little Jiao's biological father. He was also the one who sold little Jiao. He drank too much, gambled too much, and now it seemed that he owed loan sharks. He sold his daughter and now he wanted his daughter to help him pay off his debt? Little Jiao's relationship with her family was very weak before she was sold. After she was sold, little Jiao had probably given up on her family. Little Jiao was clearly living well now, so why did this person still come looking for her? Was this the reason why little Jiao took leave these few days? "Hey, that. One of the three people who helped collect debts pointed at a girl standing not far away. Chapter 362. She was standing outside during school hours, not even carrying her school bag. She was only holding a file and looking over coldly. This was very different from the little Nine that Zheng Tan usually saw. Little Nine, this child, if she was good to others, she would be very considerate of others. Conversely, when she did not like anyone, even if it was her biological father, not to mention that this biological father had sold her. If it was not for Zheng Tan helping her at that time, perhaps little Nine would have been long gone. She repaid kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. She was decisive and ruthless. Perhaps this was the reason why blind Lord Kuan allowed little Nine to stay. With little Nine's current background, there was no need to be afraid of these people. Therefore, Zheng Tan was not worried that little Nine would be bullied by them. He was only worried that with little Nine's age, it would be hard for her to make a decision. When these people saw little Nine, they were very excited. Little Nine's father wanted to shout and scold a few habitual words, but little Nine just waved her hand, indicating for them to change places to talk. "Hey, you made me look for you." Little Nine's father wanted to make a move after going over, but when he met little Nine's eyes, he stopped abruptly. He was afraid. Without taking another look at this blood-related father, little Nine brought the four of them to a restaurant that wasn't too big. There was a "closed for business" sign hanging at the door. Little Nine ignored it and pushed the door open and went in. The boss and employees were doing their own things as usual. They were not curious about the five people who came in, as if they already knew. They did not look and were doing their own things. The five of them sat around a table. The waiter handed them a cup of water. Yes, only one cup of water, and it was only placed in front of little Nine. As for the other four, they were treated as air. "Hey, what's going on here? Don't you know that the customer is God? If you don't even know this, how can you do business?" The leader shouted. As soon as he said that, the three waiters and the boss in the restaurant rolled up their sleeves and looked over, their eyes extremely unfriendly. "Why don't I send you to meet God?" the boss said with a faint smile. The leader choked and turned back resentfully, not wanting to argue anymore. He just wanted to collect his debt and go back. Little Nine drank some water, put down the cup and was about to say something when he saw a black cat standing outside the window. A smile flashed across his originally complicated eyes, and he quickly got up to open the door. "Black charcoal?" The leader's face twitched. "Black cat again? Previously, when they were beaten up in Tsinghua University, a black cat was also present. As expected, nothing good ever came out of running into a black cat. However, why did this cat's name sound like the black cat from that day? Could it be the same one? However, this place wasn't very close to Tsinghua University. After Zheng Tan entered the room, he squatted down on a chair at the side, watching the development of the situation and helping Little Nine. One of the employees in the shop pointed at the boss with his mouth. "Boss, there's a cat." Another employee whispered to the boss, "That cat is very calm. Does it know Little Nine? You're quite brave, not afraid of strangers at all." The restaurant owner's mouth twitched. He had heard that this cat even dared to play with Lord Kuan's beard. What else would it not dare to do? Others might not know, but he had heard of the rumors about this cat. Because of Zheng Tan's participation in the shop, the atmosphere in the shop changed slightly. Little Nine took a deep breath and took out something from the document bag. It was a thin piece of paper that looked like it had just been printed. There were no wrinkles or stains on the paper, and it was pale white. Little Nine pushed the paper in front of her father and said, "After signing this agreement, we'll go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other." Little Nine's father was illiterate, but he could still understand most of the words. On the paper, it was very clear that Little Nine would help him pay off his debt, and then they would not owe each other anything. Seeing that he could pay off the debt, Little Nine's father did not think much about it. He picked up a pen and signed his name on the paper, and even pressed his thumbprint. Little Nine lowered her eyelids so that the people around them could not see what she was thinking. She looked very calm, but Zheng Tan could tell from Little Nine's clenched fists that this child was not as calm as she appeared. No matter what, they were blood relatives. When the man signed the agreement, he did not hesitate. Zheng Tan did not know what to say. Mao and the man in front of him were both fathers, but why was there such a big difference? Was it because of poverty? Or was it because of other reasons? This agreement was just a test by Little Gio. When Elder Kuan decided to let Little Gio stay, the various procedures had already been completed. Little Gio no longer had anything to do with this family. Even if they were to meet in court, there was enough evidence to prove that they had an overwhelming victory. From the moment the man signed the agreement, Little Nine had really cut off all ties with the past. She crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the trash bin. Just as the man in front of her was about to shout, Little Nine took out a card and placed it in front of the debt collector. The password is 6 nines. As Little Nine spoke, he took out $300 bills from his pocket and pointed at the blood-related people sitting across from him. However, he looked at the leader and said, "Send this person back to where he came from. I don't want to see him again. If he appears here again, he and all of you will not be able to leave." "Are you threatening me?" The leader stood up. However, before he could stand up straight, a kitchen knife chopped at the side of his arm. It almost cut into the table. His sleeve was already cut. If it had been just a little bit more, a piece of flesh would have been cut off from his arm. Good knife skills, Zheng Tan thought. Regardless of whether it was the 3 debt collectors or Little Nine's father, their faces were all pale. The leader's face twitched a few times as he looked in the direction where the knife came from. On the other side, the restaurant owner was sitting at the cashier counter. His fingers were rhythmically tapping on the table. He had the same smile on his face as usual, as if he had just done something very normal. "Oh, sorry, my hand slipped. I was going to chop the fly." A waiter sitting at the door looked at the people on the table and laughed. On his finger, a table knife spun quickly. It was as natural as spinning a pen. His finger was unharmed. F***CK, I definitely can't come to this restaurant to eat in the future. I won't come even if I starve to death. This was the thought shared by the 3 debt collectors. If they still didn't understand the situation now, they would be retarded. Fortunately, the 3 debt collectors weren't that retarded. They knew how to judge the situation. Since they couldn't be strong here, and they had already gotten the money, it was right to leave as soon as possible. Forcing themselves to be calm, the leader put away the card and the 300 yuan. He grabbed the bearded man and hurried out. After walking a distance, the 3 debt collectors let out a long breath. After the shock, they were furious. The leader raised his hand and slapped Little Nine's father. "It's all because of you, **CK. The bearded man didn't dare to defend himself. He continued to cower. What do we do now? Another person asked. What else can we do? Of course, we have to find an ATM and see if there's money in the card. If there's no money, should we go back and ask for more? The three of them fell silent. The atmosphere in the restaurant suddenly became harmonious. The waiter and boss comforted Little Nine. They knew Little Nine and Little Nine often came here to eat. Sometimes, Little Nine even took an afternoon nap here. The boss put down a plate of rice in front of Little Nine. After eating, hurry back to class. Little Nine took a spoon and ate spoonful by spoonful. She didn't eat breakfast in the morning. Because of this incident, she didn't have much of an appetite. Her head was very low. As she ate, tears fell. Her face was expressionless. After all, she was still a child. The people in the restaurant didn't say anything. The boss patted her head gently and put a bowl of warm red bean paste beside her. After eating and drinking the red bean paste, Little Nine turned back into the lively Little Nine. Zheng Tan sent Little Nine to school. He was worried that Little Nine would be scolded for being late for 2 classes. Who knew that when she entered the school, Little Nine would take out a sick leave slip and a hospital certificate from her bag. Seeing Little Nine's red eyes, the person in charge at the school gate didn't say anything and let her in. Zheng Tan, after seeing Little Nine enter class, Zheng Tan went back. Whether it was Little Nine or Little Pomelo, their classes went up along with their grades. Zheng Tan couldn't go up. In the restaurant that Little Nine had stayed in, the closed for business sign had been removed. Hey boss, who are those 3 cowards from just now? Why are they so arrogant? The staff asked. The boss waved his hand casually. They aren't anything presentable. Just throw them out of the underworld another day. The 3 people who were labeled as not presentable looked at the numbers on the ATM and were immersed in the world of how much money they could get. They didn't know that they were being targeted. Just as someone once said, if you didn't have the foresight, you wouldn't last long in any industry. Zheng Tan went back to school with a heavy heart because of Little Nine. He thought about how Mao treated Yuan and how Little Nine's father treated Little Nine. The difference was huge. However, Zheng Tan thought about the time before he became a cat. That irresponsible father that he only saw a few times a year. Then he thought about the current Jiao Pa. Tiske, familial love was actually quite complicated. That wasn't right. Was it familial love or the human heart that was complicated? When he passed by the kindergarten, Zheng Tan stopped in his tracks. Zhua Kitten's last class in the morning seemed to be an outdoor activity class. Thus, Zheng Tan jumped to the fence and squatted down, waiting for their outdoor activity class to arrive. Recently, Zhua Kitten's mood wasn't good. Zhua Kitten wanted to go to primary school, but the teacher objected. 6 years old was the legal age to enroll in school. In some places, it was still 7 years old. If one was too young, there might be all kinds of inconveniences. For many children, enrolling in school early wasn't a good thing. The school was also in a difficult position. Some time ago, when Zheng Tan came here, he heard Zhua Kitten complain that their teacher wanted him to go to preschool for a year. However, that little brat had told Zheng Tan in private that even if he went to Lord Buddha to roll around, he would still go to primary school this year. Because if Zhua Kitten went to primary school according to little Zhua's promise, she should come back. When the outdoor class started, the children in Zhua Kitten's class all ran out, fighting for their favorite ladders and castles. Only Zhua Kitten looked at the fence first. Then she smiled and ran over. As she ran, she shouted, brother, hey, let me tell you." Chapter 363. Compared with some time ago, Zhua Kitten's mood today seems to be quite good. And the words, "I'll tell you," indicate that there will be a long conversation. Although every time Zheng Tan comes over, Zhua Kitten is talking, but today this guy looks like he will say more. Sure enough, Zhua Kitten then said that he went to find Lord Zheng, and proudly described how he used his clever brain to pretend to be pitiful in front of Lord Zheng, how to roll around, how to negotiate with Lord Zheng. Zheng Tan suddenly remembered a time when she went out for a stroll on the old street. When she walked past a tofu stall, she heard a few aunties say that the child who bought the tofu used her brain to make tofu even though she was supposed to be a doctor. But now, Zheng Tan saw that Zhuo Kitten's IQ was used to make a scene, and she even succeeded in doing so. After a lot of preamble and foreshadowing, Zhuo Kitten stared at Zheng Tan with bright eyes, and his mouth couldn't help but open. Brother He, Grandma Yi agreed that I should go to primary school this year. The Grandma Yi, in Zhuo Kitten's mouth, is Lord Zheng. Lord Zheng's real name is Yi He. Usually, Zhuo Kitten directly calls Lord Zheng Grandma Yi. In addition to Grandma Yi, there are Grandma Li, Grandpa Zhang, Grandma Lu, and a lot of other grandparents. With the help of these elders who have a lot of power, it is not a problem for Zhuo Kitten to go to primary school in advance. Moreover, Zhuo Kitten has been tested by the affiliated primary school. There is no problem in the first grade at all. There is no need to go through another back door. If it weren't for Zhuo Kitten's young age, the teacher in charge of the test would have almost said that the child didn't need to go to the first grade. Zheng Tan knew that this little guy had a higher IQ than the other children. While the other children were still barely able to recognize numbers, he had already come into contact with pi. While the other children were scrambling to show that they could memorize the decimal places of pi, this little brat had already come into contact with three-dimensional geometry. This was because once, when Zheng Tan came over, she saw Zhuo Kitten holding a small rubber ball to measure its diameter. On the penultimate page of his sketchbook, there was a formula for calculating the volume of the ball. Zheng Tan had no idea how knowledgeable the 5-year-old Zhuo Kitten was. Usually, she only heard the kindergarten teachers say that Zhuo Kitten was a smart child, but they rarely mentioned the word genius. It was enough to show that Zhuo Kitten was still quite low-key and restrained. At most, she would deliberately tease the teachers and classmates. Brother He, do you think my mother will come back after I go to primary school? Zhuo Xiaomao looked at Zheng Tan expectantly. How would I know? Zheng Tan cursed in his heart. Perhaps only Lord Zheng and the woman who usually took care of little kitten Zhuo knew about it. By the way, I asked Mom on Mother's Day. Mom said that she would come back when I was in elementary school, Zhuo Kitten said softly as she kicked the wall lightly. Mother's Day had just passed. According to Zhuo Kitten, although little Zhuo had not returned, he would have video calls with Zhuo Kitten every once in a while. Mother's Day was also the time for video calls. Since little Zhuo had said so, could he really come back this year? If that was the case, that would be great. Although Zhuo Kitten usually lived a good life, she did not have her parents by her side for as long as she could remember. Compared to other children, she would always be lacking. Even if her intelligence was higher than other children, she was still a child after all. Zhuo Kitten had already determined that her mother would come back this year. Therefore, other than being more talkative than usual, she was also exceptionally happy. Once she was happy, Zhuo Kitten treated the other students especially well. She was very patient with the students who came to ask her questions and did not tease them anymore. Zheng Tan did not know if little Zhuo could come back or not. If she could not come back this year, how depressed would Zhuo Kitten be? Although she was still a child, sometimes it was difficult to deal with children when they were serious. On the other side of the ladder, there was a child who was crying with snot all over his face. The more the teacher comforted him, the harder the child cried. Zheng Tan looked over there. He felt that he should think about what to prepare for Zhuo Kitten as a gift for June 1st. When the time came, it would also be a consolation gift. Since junior high school, June 1st was just a date. It no longer had that special meaning. However, for every child in primary school, it was a memorable holiday. On that day, they would have performances, singing and dancing, snacks from the school, and holidays. On that day, it would be very smooth to ask their parents for gifts. When the new year came, Zheng Tan gave Zhuo Kitten a big red packet. It was not good to give another big red packet on June 1st. If there was no red packet, what should he give? For the next few days, Zheng Tan had been thinking about it. It just so happened that Xiaoguo's shop had recently held an event. Xiaoguo had customized some gifts as gifts for those VIP customers. Most of these gifts were cat-shaped and dog-shaped dolls, ranging from small phone accessories to big pillows and stuffed toys that were about the size of humans. Of course, any kind of gift would have to correspond to the VIP membership points. The few biggest stuffed toys were specially used by Xiaoguo to please a few special customers. Every time those customers came, Xiaoguo could always make a lot of money. Zheng Tan could not have any ideas about those things, so he set his eyes on the pillows. He chose purely based on the value of the toys. Since he could not pick the biggest one, he would pick the second biggest one. One day, after going to the pet center for a routine shoot, Zheng Tan did not ask for the overtime pay that Xiaogui gave him. Instead, he took a pillow with him. The original shape of the gifts was based on the cats and dogs in the studio. Even the paparazzi dolls were included. They did not have front legs. There were only 2 protrusions on the front legs, and they used their hind legs to maintain balance. Needless to say, this cat that was rescued by the dog from the earthquake was quite popular. Many people wanted to give away the phone chain and the dolls that looked like this guy. Although Zheng Tan was also very popular in the cat community, because of the color of his fur, the dolls that were given as gifts did not have much of an advantage compared to other cats. When Charlie sent Zheng Tan back to the Jiao family, he also sent the BC pillow that Zheng Tan had chosen to the Jiao family. The front was a black cat's head, and the back was embroidered with the letters BC. Jiao Ma thought that Zheng Tan had brought it back for himself. She did not expect that Zheng Tan had not opened the package. Because June 1st was on Monday this year, and the Dragon Boat Festival was close to June 1st, the kindergarten was on holiday from the Dragon Boat Festival to June 1st, which was a full 5 days of holiday. If Zheng Tan wanted to give a gift, he could only choose the day before the holiday to bring the person to the courtyard. Otherwise, how could he give away such a big pillow? It was too inconvenient. Zheng Tan ran to the entrance of the kindergarten 10 minutes before school ended. He knew that the person in charge of taking care of Zhuo Xiaowan, who was called Little Wan by Lord Zeng, would be waiting 10 meters to the left of the school entrance, so he walked over there. Generally speaking, Little Wan would arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. After all, sometimes the kindergarten's end time was not so strict, and there was a certain amount of flexibility. But today, after Zheng Tan arrived, he waited for a few minutes and did not see Little Wan arrive. Just as he was wondering why Little Wan had not arrived yet, Zheng Tan heard someone call his cat name. Black Charcoal? Hearing this voice, Zheng Tan's first reaction was to find it familiar. His second reaction was to turn his head and look. After seeing the person's face clearly, Zheng Tan was a little absent-minded. It was not until the person called out Black Charcoal that Zheng Tan reacted. Little Zhuo. It was Little Zhuo. Zheng Tan felt that his eyes were a little sore. The person in front of him was Little Zhuo, but he looked different from before. In Zheng Tan's memory, Little Zhuo's deepest impression was the image of Little Zhuo holding a book and sitting on a bench by the artificial lake. That young and gentle person was one of the 3 trump cards of the famous Lord Zeng, with unlimited potential. Because of Zhuo Xiaowan, Zheng Tan often saw some of the students under Lord Zeng. Some stayed in school, some went abroad to further their studies and came back. They did not look much different from when they left. At most, they became a little more radiant. After all, they were all going to higher places. Little Zhuo, who was the same age as them, looked younger than those people back then. Only 4 or 5 years had passed, but Little Zhuo looked like he had experienced more than 10 years. Not only that, but he also had a thin and sickly feeling. Even the clothes he used to wear now looked like they were 1 size bigger. Zheng Tan recalled some things that Jiao Pa had said. Some projects were more harmful to people. Even if there were protective measures, they could not be completely avoided. It was as if he had overdrawn his life. No wonder Jiao Pa said that the project was very dangerous. No wonder so many people could not come back. No wonder Lord Zeng opposed her participation in the project. When Zheng Tan looked at Little Zhuo had already walked in front of Zheng Tan. Squatting and reaching out to touch Zheng Tan's forehead, Little Zhuo smiled and said, "Are you scared? Don't worry, you'll get better after a period of rest." Little Zhuo knew that he was not in good shape now. Generally speaking, after the completion of the project, he could apply to leave and recuperate there for a period of time. There would be specialized treatment staff to help treat him. Little Zhuo's original plan was to recuperate there and come back when he looked better. However, the conversation with Zhuo Xiaowan on Mother's Day made Little Zhuo change his mind. Zhuo Xiaowan video chatted with Little Zhuo every year, so Little Zhuo could be recognized by Zhuo Xiaowan even if he did not do any recuperation treatment. When she saw the black cat squatting in front of the kindergarten just now, she was actually a little nervous. She was worried that the cat would not recognize her if she left for too long. But in fact, from the black cat's eyes, she knew that the cat still remembered her. It was just that it was a little frightened by her current appearance. After all, she now looked like she had aged more than 10 years. In addition to wrinkles, there were some spots. Her face was far less radiant than before. Even if her former classmates saw her current appearance, they might not be able to recognize her. When little Zhuo came back yesterday, Lord Zeng also recognized little Zhuo immediately. When he saw little Zhuo's appearance, Lord Zeng, who usually had a straight face and did not have much expression, directly reddened his eyes. However, he did not say much. He only said, "It's good that you're back." When she was young, she was more willful. She was always unwilling to listen to others' advice. She also did a lot of wrong things and made decisions impulsively. In the past few years, she had thought things through and understood a lot. The person she was most sorry to was Zhuo Xiaowan. Now that she was back, she would not leave again. In the rest of her life, she would always be with Zhuo Xiaowan and watch him grow up. Little Zhuo was still about to talk to Zheng Tan when a child came out of the kindergarten over there. Zhuo Xiaowan ran out. Usually, she did not see this kid so impatient. "Mommy, mommy." Zhuo Xiaowan, who ran out, looked over. After seeing little Zhuo, her anxious and worried face immediately turned into a smile. Zhuo Xiaowan threw herself into little Zhuo's arms. Then, she lowered her head and called Zheng Tan, "Brother Black." She said to little Zhuo, "Mommy, mommy, let's invite Brother Black to eat together." "Black Charcoal, do you want to join us?" Little Zhuo looked at Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan turned his head. "Forget it today. Let the mother and son spend more time together." Seeing Zhuo Xiaowan's joy, it would not cool down for a while. Zhuo Xiaowan called twice, but Zheng Tan did not follow. After little Zhuo led Zhuo Xiaowan away, Zheng Tan went back to the courtyard. After taking 2 steps, he stopped, turned a corner, and followed not far behind the mother and son. It was still early now. Jiao Ma had not returned home yet. Zheng Tan could still stay outside for a while and listen to what little Zhuo and Zhuo Xiaowan were talking about. However, it was Zhuo Xiaowan who was talking all the way. Little Zhuo just smiled and listened. From time to time, he would respond to Zhuo Xiaowan and let her perform. When they passed by the International Academic Hall, a group of people came out of the hall. They were surrounded by a few famous young returnees. Most of them were around 30 years old. They were about the same age as little Zhuo now. Even if they were older, they were only a few years older. It was just that they looked younger than little Zhuo and were much more glorious. The crowd surrounded them. There were also some experts and scholars accompanying them. Words such as young and promising, unlimited potential, pillars of the country, kept appearing. If little Zhuo had not participated in that project back then, he might be among these people now. He might even be higher than them. A group of figures with halos brushed past little Zhuo and Zhuo Xiaowan. They did not pay much attention to the mother and son. They talked about their own ideals, ambitions, achievements, and glorious future amidst the compliments of a group of people. Little Zhuo, who had already walked past, looked back at the group of people. There was not much envy. Everyone had their own choices and their own paths. Although, in terms of contributions, she might have more achievements than those people combined, her achievements could not be exposed. At least not now. After taking a look, little Zhuo turned back and continued to lead Zhuo Xiaowan home. When little Zhuo turned back to look, he did not pay attention to Zhuo Xiaowan's movements. However, Zheng Tan, who was following behind, saw it. Zhuo Xiaowan also glanced at those people. When little Zhuo turned back, Zhuo Xiaowan also turned back. There were other parents who had picked up their children from kindergarten. A child was sitting behind his mother's scooter. He was showing off a poem he had learned today. Luo Binwang's Singing the Goose. He had memorized a few words wrongly. However, it was not easy for a child at this age to memorize a poem. Even if they could not understand the meaning of the poem, the parents were still very happy. Zhuo Xiaowan glanced at the child. Then, she shook little Zhuo's hand and said to little Zhuo, "Mommy, mommy, let's memorize a poem too." "Okay, what poem does Xiaowan want to memorize?" Little Zhuo asked. "Let's compare poems." "Okay, compare poems. Xiaowan first." Zhuo Xiaowan thought for a moment and raised her chin. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron. Little Zhuo was stunned. Then he could not help but laugh. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. Sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus. Sulfur, chloroargon, potassium, calcium. Zheng Tan, who was behind them and heard everything clearly, was speechless. This was a poem? This was clearly the periodic table of the elements. Chapter 364. Because of Little Zhuo's return, Zheng Tan had originally planned to stop Little Zhuo, bring him to the courtyard, and then give him a present for the 6th of July. But now, it seemed that there was no need. There was no gift that could make him happier than Little Zhuo's return. The so-called consolation gift was also unnecessary. He couldn't give the present today, and he wasn't in a hurry to give it. He would wait for the opportunity. Unexpectedly, before Zheng Tan could choose the opportunity, Little Zhuo came directly to his door. After visiting the Jiaopa, Jiaoma, Little Zhuo talked to the Jiaopa and Jiaoma for a while. Of course, she didn't talk about the projects she had participated in. Those were the projects she had signed a confidentiality agreement with. She wouldn't and couldn't disclose them. Just like the excuse Lord Zeng gave her for going abroad to do research, she talked about the research she had participated in the past few years. She didn't say much. After all, it wasn't true, and Little Zhuo couldn't lie too much. The Jiaopa understood and didn't ask much. In addition to visiting the Jiao family, Little Zhuo also picked up Zheng Tan to her house to celebrate the Children's Day with Little Zhuo. On the Children's Day, the 4 members of the Jiao family didn't have a holiday at all. Zheng Tan could stay with Little Zhuo for a day. After the Dragon Boat Festival, on Monday, Saturday, Zheng Tan went out with the Jiao family. Little Pomelo went to junior high school, Jiaopa went to college, Jiaoma went to affiliated to Renmin University of China, and Jiao Yuan went back to school on Sunday. So that morning, only Jiaoma went to affiliated to Renmin University of China. Zheng Tan directly stayed in the courtyard after going downstairs, lying on a wooden chair and waiting. Next to the chair was a pillow that Father Jiao had brought down for him. It was placed in a bag and was used as a gift. Little Pomelo had tied the bag with a ribbon and tied it with a bow. According to Little Zhuo, she would go out to buy groceries this morning and then come directly to pick up Zheng Tan. They were still living in the elevator room in the west courtyard. Zheng Tan couldn't go there alone. The building's security was troublesome, and he had to bring a present. In the morning, De Pang followed the old lady to buy groceries. Huang was still sleeping at home. The sheriff came out for a walk. He heard that the sheriff ate 3 dumplings at once during the Dragon Boat Festival. After his owner found out, he immediately sent to the pet center. Usually, the sheriff's owner was upset when he saw that 3 dumplings were gone. Not to mention that the sheriff's hut, the hut to Renmin, was in the courtyard. In this in's whys. No wonder the sheriff's owner's is. His. Wonder the sheriff's owner, S's owner's is his. SSS home day cat, SSS ats. T's, S to. Was to worry. S to T tessis azes S to worry. T. Watching the sheriff climb over the wall outside the courtyard, Zheng Tan shook his head. Zheng Tan didn't wait long. Little Zhuo came over at 8 o'clock. She was carrying the groceries that she had just bought from the market. It wasn't a lot. After the groceries were transferred to one of her hands, she helped Zheng Tan carry the big black pillow with a cat's head. The Jiaopa had called and told her about it. It always felt awkward to let a woman help carry things, but Zheng Tan couldn't help it. He was just a cat now. The west courtyard was very green now. It was not as bare as it was 2 years ago. The branches of the trees were spread out, and it looked much more comfortable. It was time to go to work, and there was no one around. Zheng Tan didn't take the stairs. He took the elevator with Little Zhuo. After entering the house, Zheng Tan found that the house didn't seem to have changed much compared to a few years ago. There were only a lot of Little Zhuo's things. The original decorative paintings on the wall had become Little Zhuo's graffiti. Xiao Wan, who had helped take care of Little Zhuo for the past few years, had left. Her task had been completed. She was replaced by another middle-aged nanny, who was newly hired by Lord Zeng. Unlike the nanny hired when Little Zhuo was pregnant, this nanny didn't have any dislike for Zheng Tan. After Little Zhuo came in, the nanny quickly took the groceries and went to the kitchen. Little Zhuo was holding a pen and drawing on her small drawing board. When she saw Zheng Tan, she dropped the pen and ran over. "Black Bro's gift for you." Little Zhuo handed the pillow to Little Zhuo. "Thank you, Black Bro." The little kid didn't stand on ceremony. He took the pillow and opened it. Then, he put the pillow in the room directly at the head of the bed with a smile. Zheng Tan noticed that there was a small bookshelf in Little Zhuo's room. There were a few books on it that were taken from Little Zhuo's bookshelf. Zheng Tan had seen those books on Little Zhuo's bookshelf before. Looking carefully, there were a few books that had traces of being newly flipped through and children's-style bookmarks. On Little Zhuo's desk, there was a Chinese dictionary and an English dictionary. Both of them seemed to have been flipped through many times. Zheng Tan jumped on the table and looked at the books on the bookshelf. There were a few children's science books. The books had also been flipped through, but now they were placed at the corner of the bookshelf. From the corner of the bookshelf, he looked at the books from the easy to difficult. They covered a wide range of subjects. Some of them had been flipped through many times, and some of them had been flipped through very little. The ones that had been flipped through very little might not be because Little Zhuo didn't like to read them. It was just that he couldn't understand them now. However, Zheng Tan wasn't sure when that little kid would be able to understand them. Little Zhuo hadn't been around for the past few years, so it definitely wasn't Little Zhuo who taught him. That little one should have taught him, but most of it was Little Zhuo's own choice. While Little Zhuo was hugging the pillow and watching cartoons, Little Zhuo was holding a photo album and looking at it by the big window in the room. Zheng Tan wasn't interested in watching cartoons with Little Zhuo, so he went over to see what Little Zhuo was looking at. Jumping on the table at the side, Zheng Tan saw that there was a yellowed black and white old photo in the photo album. There was a circle of lace on the side. In the photo was a man who looked to be in his 30s. However, he was in his 30s at that time. He should be in his 50s now, right? He looked a bit like Little Zhuo. Could he be Little Zhuo's father? There was a drawing next to the photo. The paper was already yellowed. It was probably about the same age as the old photo. However, the person who drew the picture wasn't very good at drawing. Zheng Tan couldn't see what was drawn on the paper. He could only see that it was something similar to a circle. Little Zhuo's fingers rubbed the picture and the drawing on the paper through the protective film of the photo album. Then, she took out a golden badge from the drawer of the table beside her. The badge looked very similar to the drawing on the paper. Placing the golden badge next to the picture and the drawing on the paper, Little Zhuo remembered some things that happened to her father when he was alive. She always remembered that when she was young, after her father drew this picture on the paper, he said to her in a very yearning tone, "There is a golden badge. It symbolizes supreme honor." Unfortunately, until he passed away, he was still unable to obtain that small golden badge. Touching the lines on the golden badge, Little Zhuo said to Zheng Tan beside her, "Black charcoal, do you know that a tree needs green leaves that are exposed to the sun to carry out photosynthesis? It needs bright flowers with a fragrance to attract insects to spread pollen. It needs fruits to continue the next generation. However, it also needs roots that are buried in the soil and cannot see the sun to absorb water. This badge is proof of my sacrifice. It is also the promise that this country has given me. With it, no matter if Kitten is smart or stupid, this golden badge will protect him." Zheng Tan knew that Zhuo Kitten's father on the household register was not his biological father. However, all the official documents were the same as the ones on the household register. All the files might not be true, but they were definitely authentic. They couldn't be more authentic. No one knew Zhuo Kitten's real background. She wouldn't be criticized and wouldn't have those strange looks. The values of the people of this era and the people of the past may be somewhat different. However, there are really many nameless heroes in this country. There were many people who couldn't come back after going there. No one remembered them. Only some files that wouldn't be made public recorded their achievements. Perhaps 1 or 2 medals that symbolized their achievements accompanied them to the ground. The world needed people to be praised. However, most of these people would never be known by people. "Brother, hey!" Zhuo Kitten, who was watching TV, suddenly shouted. Hearing Zhuo Kitten's shout, Zheng Tan and Little Zhuo both came back to their senses and looked over. They originally thought that Zhuo Kitten was calling them for something. However, Zhuo Kitten was only watching TV and didn't look over at Zheng Tan. Because of the angle, Zheng Tan couldn't see what was on TV. He didn't plan to pay attention to it. However, he didn't expect Zhuo Kitten to shout again. "Brother He! Mommy, Brother He is on TV," Zhuo Kitten said to little Zhuo. Little Zhuo quickly wiped her tears and took a few deep breaths to adjust her mood. Then she smiled and walked over. Zheng Tan was also curious. When did he go on TV? He went over to take a look. Zhuo Kitten was watching an entertainment program. There were several movie previews. Among them, there was the movie that Zheng Tan acted in last year. It was a very short clip. When Zheng Tan came over to watch, he only saw one scene and the ending, just this summer. Then the trailer ended. Little Zhuo didn't notice. She only saw a few short scenes in a hurry. She saw the black cat in the movie, but she didn't connect the black cat in the movie with Zheng Tan. However, Zhuo Kitten said it with certainty and little Zhuo didn't refute. Zheng Tan observed little Zhuo's expression and found that she didn't recognize him. He was secretly relieved. As long as it wasn't easy to recognize him, he was still free to go out for a walk. The movie wasn't so similar to reality. When Zheng Tan was shooting, he also chose a lot of angles that were beneficial to him. He let the camera take pictures of him to make him look more handsome. In addition to the post-production and some small special effects, no one should be able to directly match the cat in the movie with a cheap cat like him who was wandering around all day. However, how did Zhuo Kitten recognize him? Looking at the child, she was quite sure. Speaking of black cats, there were also people in the Western District compound who raised black cats. When he came over in the morning, he saw one that looked quite similar to him. Little Zhuo didn't intend to argue with Zhuo Kitten about this topic. She looked at the screening time and said to Zhuo Kitten, "Kitten, Mommy will take you to see this movie." Okay, at the same time, in Air Mao's house on the 3rd floor of the Eastern District compound, Air Mao, who was also watching this channel, was testing milk for his daughter. Every time he mixed milk, he would taste it himself to see if there was any strange smell and how the temperature was. Although the little girl could eat now, he didn't forget to drink milk. Chapter 365. Air Yuan saw that her father was wasting her milk and called out, "Ah!" She was a little anxious, but she couldn't express anything too complicated. Seeing that Air Mao was still staring at the TV, Air Yuan was unhappy. She patted the chair and used her voice to express her dissatisfaction. "Dad, Dad." Hearing Air Yuan's call, Air Mao finally turned around and passed the milk to Air Yuan. "Daughter, that black coal actually acted in a movie." "Brother Black?" Air Yuan didn't understand what a movie was, but she knew that the black coal her father was talking about was Brother Black. Like Zhuo Xiao Mao, she and Wei Xiaopeng also called Zheng Tan Brother Black. Yes. It must be that guy. I knew it with one look. Other than the black coal, no other cat can act like that. That look in its eyes is so naughty, Air Mao said. Air Yuan held the cup and drank the milk. She thought about what her father meant by naughty, naughty, naughty. She thought for a long time but couldn't understand. Forget it, she didn't want to think about it. Drinking milk was more important. When she saw Brother Black, she would learn from her father and say, "Naughty, naughty, naughty." Air Mao didn't know what his daughter was thinking. He was still shocked by the movie trailer just now. He was busy taking care of his wife and child last year and didn't pay much attention to the black coal. He didn't expect that it had already acted in a movie. What a simple life. After thinking for a while, Air Mao still couldn't calm down the curiosity and surprise in its heart, but it couldn't just go upstairs and ask. At this time, the cat must be hanging around outside, and it might even be flirting with a female cat. If Zheng Tan knew what Air Mao was thinking, he would definitely rush over and beat him up. Seeing the phone on the table, Air Mao picked it up and saw that Air Yuan was drinking milk seriously. He told her to put the cup aside and play by herself for a while. If she needed anything, she could call him. He would go next door to make a call. The nanny was hanging the clothes. Air Mao went to the next room after informing her. He closed the door, flipped through the address book, and called Celestine. Celestine was at the company checking a few shipping orders and stamping them. He was a little tired from looking at the orders, so he went outside to get some fresh air. When he heard Air Mao's call, Celestine wondered why Air Mao was calling him at this time. As soon as the call connected, Celestine heard Air Mao's exclamation. "Senior, did you know? Black Coal actually acted in a movie. It's not a pet commercial, it's a real movie. It's a big movie with a few small celebrities and it's on the big screen." Wei Ling choked on the word, create. It took him a while to realize what he was talking about. "Speak properly," Celestine said. Air Mao, ever since his daughter, Air Yuan, could speak, he often talked to her. Although he influenced Air Yuan and let her learn a lot of words, Air Mao also learned some vague pronunciations and some habits when speaking to children. For example, he said eat as eat and sleep as sleep. If he only said this to children, it would be fine. Many parents did this, but Air Mao also said this when everyone gathered together. He even mixed in some baby language, which gave everyone goosebumps. A group of grown-ups talking like this when they were together. Celestine wanted to punch him. However, Black Charcoal acted in a movie? He seemed to have heard similar news last year. He thought it was just like the advertisement at the pet center, so he didn't take it seriously. Now that he looked at it, it was true. What's the name? Celestine walked into the office and sat beside the computer. He searched for the movie Black Cat, according to the name Air Mao mentioned. There was no cat's name on the cast list, only a few actors and the director's introduction. However, from the publicity, the director told the media that the black cat in the movie was borrowed from a friend. It was a trained black cat. Everyone called it Z, and its breed was unknown. Seeing this, Celestine laughed. Z? Breed unknown? It was obviously Black Charcoal. It even had a fake name. One stage name wasn't enough, so it came up with a second one. While he was looking, Air Mao called again. "Did you see it? It's that Black Charcoal, right?" Although it was a question, it showed a very certain meaning. Air Mao didn't doubt its eyesight at all. "Yes." Celestine was on the phone while browsing the web. He had just finished watching the trailer posted on the internet. Anyway, he had nothing else to do. Since he happened to come across this matter, his interest was piqued and he read more. "Hey, Senior, it's not long before the release date. Why don't we go watch the movie together? Let's give Black Charcoal more box office?" Air Mao said expectantly. He didn't go to the cinema often. In fact, there weren't many movies that attracted him. When he wanted to watch a movie, he would search online. Copyright and whatnot, it was just a term. "Okay, let's go together then." Celestine was also looking forward to it. As one of the early people who knew the Black Cat, Celestine knew what kind of character the Black Cat was. "All right, Senior, can children be brought into the cinema? It's been too long since I went to the cinema." "I don't know the rules," Air Mao said. "It seems that there are no restrictions. You want to bring Air Yuan to the cinema? Air Yuan is too young. He's only 1.5 years old. Moreover, the sound in the cinema is loud, the air is bad, and the screen is flickering. I'm afraid it will affect the child's hearing and eyes." Celestine recalled what his wife had said before and told Air Mao. "I see. I'll ask when the time comes." Air Mao actually wanted to bring his daughter to the cinema. If the child's mother hadn't come back by then, would he go alone? Even if he went with his senior and the others, Air Mao still hoped that he could bring his daughter. Moreover, this was Black Charcoal's movie. How could Air Yuan's brother not go to the cinema to support him? However, the environment in the cinema was indeed not very good. Therefore, for the rest of the time, Air Mao was thinking of ways to reduce the impact of the cinema on the child. The Jiao family also knew that the movie was about to be released. They downloaded the trailer and watched it several times. Unfortunately, the trailer was too short. They could only hope that the release date would come soon. Before the release, all parties were busy promoting it. The actors weren't very famous, and there were also many newcomers. In terms of actors, other than the few idols who didn't bring much effect, there was nothing else. Director? He wasn't very famous. Compared to the few well-known directors, Kong Han was still a stranger. However, this time, there was a new element in it. It attracted a lot of people. The plot wasn't new, but they could watch the cat. Ever since the trailer was released, many people analyzed how the movie would do at the box office. Some people mocked the few scenes in the trailer, saying that the movie must have spent a lot of money to achieve such effects. It was common knowledge that the special effects of movies in the country were mostly unbearable. Why were the production costs of foreign blockbusters in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of US dollars, but the domestic production costs were much lower? The computer special effects of the former started at 10,000 US dollars per second, while the special effects in the country were only a few hundred to a few thousand RMB per second. The difference in cost was obvious. It was true that you got what you paid for. There were many professionals in movie-related forums analyzing the special effects. The production costs of such special effects should be at least tens of millions, right? Back then, Cat and Dog War, Pig Baby, and other animal movies cost tens of millions of US dollars. You want to use tens of millions of US dollars to make an animal movie in the country? Are you looking for trouble? Isn't it a waste of money? Although animal movies are very popular, the production costs are too high. Basically, no one in the country is willing to do it. I didn't expect Kong Han to film it this time. I have to say, this director is still too young. A production cost of tens of millions of US dollars? I must go and take a look. The cat in the movie looks quite real, especially the scene in the trailer where the cat stood up and walked. It looks so natural. How much did the optical computer special effects cost? This was someone who loved to watch big-budget movies. They felt that small-budget movies were too crude. They belonged to the category of people who only bought the expensive ones and not the right ones. Some people went for the production costs and the computer special effects, while others went for the cat element. I don't know any Wei Wen, nor have I heard of any Shi Xiaotian. I just want to see the cat in the movie. Anyway, there aren't many movies to watch. It's rare to see a cat movie in the country. Let's support the domestic production. It won't cost much. Hey, that cat looks a lot like my dust ball. Behind the post was a large picture. The picture revealed the truth. Needless to say, the cat in the picture did look like Xing Tan. However, there were many stray cats in the country that looked similar. Other than this netizen, there were also pictures of other netizens who had black cats. Before the movie was released, all kinds of computer special effects professionals were criticizing each other on the internet. They were waiting to see the overall effect after the movie was released. Then, they would do a follow-up analysis and see who was right and who was wrong. Xing Tan didn't believe that there was no one behind the scenes. However, it was a movie. Before it was released, it had to be promoted and promoted. What made Xing Tan laugh the most was that some people used Yang Yi to ridicule him. I heard that Yi Xing Culture invested tens of millions of US dollars to film this movie. Does anyone know the details? Tens of millions of US dollars? Nonsense, tens of millions of US dollars can be used to film so many movies in the country. Only you would believe those rumors. It's all hype, definitely hype. Who knows? I saw that the computer special effects were done well. Maybe it's true. Who asked Yang Yi to be so rich and willing to spend so much money? Who is Yang Yi? You don't know Yang Yi? He's the big boss of Yi Xing Culture, Mr. Moneybags. I'm kneeling to Mr. Moneybags. 23 RD. But how come I heard that the movie's production cost was only a few million RMB? 24th, you're an idiot. Don't tell me you're on the same technology forum as me. 25th, 23rd, idiot. 26th, 23rd, idiot +1. Xing Tan was amused by the posts. He didn't know much about the production cost, but he had heard from Kong Han that the movie's production cost wasn't high. It could be considered a small production. If Kong Han's words were true, then the people on the technology forum were all monkeys. No one would believe that Xing Tan had acted in the movie himself, especially the movements, eyes, and micro-expressions. There were no computer special effects, nor were there any stunt robots. The stunt cats that Kong Han had found were not used at all. Instead, they were fattened up. However, no matter what, the movie Black Cat had been hyped up before it was released because of the production cost. Everyone from Yang Yi and Kong Han to the actors and post-production team were exposed. Yi Xing Culture was also known by many people. Chapter 366. The movie would be released in mid-July. Xing Tan went with the Jiao family. Although pets couldn't enter the cinema, there was a connection in the world. In fact, it wasn't the Jiao family who contacted him. It was Fang Xiaokong who called. Fang Xiaokong had connections. Moreover, Zheng Tan's participation in the movie couldn't be hidden from the third master Fang. He already knew about it. 2 days before the movie was released, the third master Fang, who was in Beijing, directly called the Jiao Pa and settled it. Fang Xiaokong also said that he would bring Fang Mengmeng to watch the movie together to support her. Mao and Celestine had Yi Hao's help. The group went together. Mao and Celestine took the children with them. They also prepared eye masks, earmuffs, and masks. If they found that they were affected too much, they would carry them out. The Jiao family's 4 families and 1 cat moved separately. They weren't in the same cinema as Celestine's group. As for Xiaozhua's group, Xiaozhua and some of Lord Zheng's students were watching the movie in a cinema near the school. How did it feel to watch your own movie? Zheng Tan expressed that he was nervous and a little embarrassed. After all, this was a movie. With so many people watching it, it was very different from watching a documentary at home. The atmosphere was something that could easily affect one's mood. Although he had Fang Xiaokong's phone call, the necessary measures still needed to be taken. Zheng Tan went into his backpack again. When the movie started, he came out. Little Pomelo sat beside him. Jiao Yuan sat on the right. Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma sat on the left and right. There were people blocking the left and right, so he wasn't afraid of being seen. As for the people in front, they didn't look back. Even if they saw Zheng Tan, it didn't matter. The people in front of him were known by the school. Zheng Tan didn't know how many people were sitting in the theater and whether it was full or not. If not many people came to watch, he would definitely be disappointed. This movie was not only Zheng Tan's achievement, but also directly related to the size of his red packet. If the box office wasn't good, he probably wouldn't get many red packets from Yang Yi. However, from the sound of it, it seemed to be quite full. Black Cat was a comedy film with a funny style. Coupled with the elements of Zheng Tan, the movie theater was filled with laughter. Jiao Ma and the others also laughed, but they were more interested in Zheng Tan's performance. The audience behind him was discussing in low voices. Is that cat a real cat? They must have used a real cat, but the scenes just now were all computer effects. Haven't you heard? Tens of millions of US dollars were invested in this movie. If converted to RMB, it would be over 100 million. When Zheng Tan heard this, he said in his heart, *T, I personally went into battle. He even deliberately NG'd a few more times. However, even if there were a few NGs, Kong Han was still quite happy. The laughter around him calmed down Zheng Tan's nervous mood. At the same time, he thought to himself, this movie should do well. When the time comes, Yang Yi should give me a big red packet. It was cool, cute, good at acting, and knew how to cooperate. Where else could Yang Yi find such a good cat actor? While the Jiao family was bringing Zheng Tan to watch the movie, Mao and Celestine were also discussing on the other side. They were watching from different angles. Senior, Black Coal's acting is not bad now. It's better than 2 years ago when he was shooting commercials. After all, he has years of experience. Didn't he shoot documentaries before? He improved quite a lot back then. But Senior, how much attention do you think he'll attract with his actions? Mao and Celestine knew Zheng Tan well. Even if they were not proficient in special effects, they knew something about it. If this movie became popular and the real production cost was exposed, how much attention would the jumping black cat on the big screen attract? When that time comes, going out for a walk would probably be impossible. Celestine paused and said, there's someone behind it. Mao thought about it and agreed. Although they did not know how many people were behind it, it could be seen from the online debate before the movie was released that there were very few people who had their eyes on Z. There must be someone who was deliberately guiding them. At the same time, they also restrained the insiders and limited the exposure of the media. Just like Mao and Celestine, when they were arguing about the production cost, only the insiders knew the real situation of the movie. However, no one dared to say it. Yang Yi had already warned them. However, even if they signed a confidentiality agreement, there were still people who could not resist the temptation of the outside world and leaked the news. There were indeed people who leaked the news. However, that person did not appear in the company the next day. The circle did not see that person again. It was said that he resigned and went back to his hometown. No matter what the truth was, everyone only knew that it would be fine as long as they kept their mouths shut and listened to the instructions. As for little Joie and the rest, everyone was happy because of the jokes in the movie. When Ronald was drinking the paw-washing water, little Joie laughed out loud and kept laughing. "Mommy, he drank Brother Hayes' paw-washing water." Ha! Little Joie's laughter was filled with schadenfreude. Little Joie did not refute and only laughed in response. Little Joie and the rest did not think that the paw-washing water Ronald drank was real. Who would let a celebrity drink cat paw water? They must have changed it during the filming. Little Joie always believed that Ronald drank Xiangtan's paw-washing water and kept laughing. Little Joie's juniors thought that children were indeed children. They took everything seriously. In fact, everyone who knew the inside story would be happy for a long time when they saw this scene. Little Joie did not know the inside story, but she believed that this scene was real. After Black Cat was released, all kinds of comments and reviews appeared on the internet. There were good comments and bad comments. Some people said that the movie was good. It was worthy of being made with tens of millions of USD. The computer made the cat look like a real cat. It was not as if there were no animal special effects movies of this level in the country. They liked it. Of course, there were also people who said that the plot did not have much meaning. The newcomers' acting skills were too bad, such as a certain Luo. When it came to meaning, there were not many commercial blockbusters that had any. Some people despised fast food culture, but it was reasonable that it existed. After a hard day of work, looking for something relaxing to watch was also a kind of adjustment. We are not cultured people. We watch movies for fun. If it was a literary blockbuster, I might not even go. The children at home are happy watching it. As long as they are happy, everything else is secondary. Some netizens said. Xing culture also took the opportunity to continue promoting the movie. They made full use of the internet and attracted a lot of viewers. Xiangtan did not pay much attention to those. There were people at home these days, so it was not convenient for him to go online. However, according to Jiao Yuan and the others, the movie's box office was good after a week of release. It directly beat another movie with a Best Actor and a Best Actress. Everyone saw that the movie was so popular during this period of time. They all said that tens of millions of USD were spent on this movie. However, Yang Yi did not say anything. He put on airs. However, everyone took Yang Yi and Kong Han's silence as tacit agreement. All kinds of speculations were reported, and they were all very sure. In fact, Yang Yi and Kong Han did not know how many times they had celebrated in private. Movie special effects professionals were still arguing about the movie's minute, which scene used special effects, the cat's mouth could not be that shape, the cat could not be that cooperative, and so on. There were endless comments. At the same time, more people who had never seen a movie before and were not interested in this kind of movie went to the cinema to watch it. They then came back to join in the debate. In the cat and dog friends circle, the movie was also popular. It was a hot topic recently. There was once a critic who joked that Black Cat was a movie about cats and that the actors in the movie were all reduced to the background. Apart from Ronald, the other important actors did not care about the background of the movie. Even Wei Wen and Shi Xiaotian did not care about the background. To them, the most important thing was the attitude of the big boss towards them. Everything else was secondary. Unfortunately, Yang Yi had been pretending to be mysterious during this period of time. No one knew what this tycoon was thinking. The box office sales had already exceeded 100 million yuan, and it was still in the screening period. Zheng Tan did not know how much the box office sales would be in the end. He only knew that he would receive a huge red packet and did not care about the rest. As a cat, he did not want to live under the spotlight all the time. That way, he would lose his freedom. His cat life, which was already tough to begin with, would definitely become even tougher. Cats had no human rights. Fortunately, Yang Yi was there to take care of the aftermath. Third Master Fong seemed to have contributed as well. Until now, not many people had taken the direction of Z seriously. This summer, the Jiao family did not go on a long trip. As a cat who did not have any summer homework and spent most of his time on vacation, Jing Tan felt that his cat life was actually very boring. What do cats do most of the time? Some people might say that they play with their tails, fight with themselves, or lift things up with their hands. None of those, they just sleep. Take Depang for example. Sometimes, Zheng Tan really wanted to tell this fat cat to go out and exercise. If you don't exercise, you'll get old. Everyone who saw Depang would think that it was a lazy cat. How could it not be lazy after being raised like this? Even rats would not be able to outrun it. Besides, it was already 6 years old. It would be impossible to catch it. However, Zheng Tan knew that was not the case. Yesterday, the sheriff was fighting with a cat in the west compound. Depang even went over to help. The sheriff was already on the losing end, but Depang went over and killed it instantly. Zheng Tan looked at the cat that screamed and ran away. In his heart, he lit a candle for it. For a long time in the future, that cat would probably run away from Depang whenever it saw him. Seeing old man Li take Flowery out for a walk, Zheng Tan thought for a while and ran over to jump on Flowery's back. They took the dog cart for a walk. Usually, old man Li would sneak over to the west compound to chat with a few old friends before coming back. Zheng Tan happened to go over to the west compound to take a look at Kitty Zhua. Flowery had a good temper. It was often bullied by the sheriff and the others, but it was not angry. After Zheng Tan jumped on, it did not refuse. This weight was nothing to Flowery, who was 100 kilograms. However, very soon Huang jumped on as well. Old man Li found it funny. His Flowery had a good temper. It was kind to children and other animals. It was so big, but it was always bullied by these few kittens. The sheriff came out with a smirk. He looked and jumped on as well. Old man Li wanted to say something, but when he looked up, he saw a certain fatty running over. Then he jumped on as well. Flowery looked at old man Li with a wronged expression. Woo, old man Li, actually, the 4 cats combined were not that heavy. Little Flower had played with the children in the courtyard before. Zheng Tan and the other cats combined were about the same weight as the children. After Little Flower expressed his grievances, he continued to carry the 4 cats steadily. People who walked past saw this and could not help but say, "This dog and cat have such a good relationship." Chapter 367. Little Flower didn't feel wronged for long. Not long after they walked out of the courtyard, Huang jumped down from the dog's back and ran back to the courtyard. It didn't leave the courtyard much and didn't run around. It jumped on the dog's back because it saw Zheng Tan's behavior and followed suit. The sheriff didn't stay for long. He saw a little Pekingese and ran after it. Zheng Tan always thought that the sheriff was born in the wrong body. He should be a dog. As for Depang, it jumped down at the intersection of the walkway to the courtyard and the main campus road. Then, it found a tree and squatted there, waiting for its old lady to come back. Therefore, when old man Li walked slowly with Little Flower to the west courtyard, only Zheng Tan was left on the dog's back. There were also many pet dogs in the west courtyard. When they saw Little Flower, they started barking. They were all small dogs like Chihuahuas and Pekingese. Although they were barking fiercely now, they wouldn't dare to run up once the leash was released. Dogs bullied people because of their master's power. This was the philosophy of dogs. 1 or 2 cats squatted on the tree, letting the dogs bark around them. They lazily looked in the direction of Little Flower and Zheng Tan. Those who knew Zheng Tan wouldn't come over to provoke him. Those who didn't know him didn't dare to go over. After all, there was such a big dog next to them. They were too lazy to get down from the tree. Zhua Kitten was reading at home. When she heard the noise, she ran to the balcony with binoculars. Then she said to Xiao Zhua, "Mommy, Brother Hay and Little Flower are here. I'll go down and play." Because old man Li often brought the dog here, some people in the west courtyard had a deep impression of Little Flower, whose size didn't match its name at all. However, everyone knew that this dog had a good personality. It didn't fight with other dogs and was good to children. Zhua Kitten even rode it. Therefore, sometimes when she saw Little Flower come over, Zhua Kitten would go over to play. Now that Zheng Tan was here, Zhua Kitten wanted to go down even more. Xiao Zhua was worried about him going down alone. After informing the nanny, she followed him downstairs. The children in the courtyard loved to play with Little Blossom because Little Blossom would not bite their balls. Someone in the courtyard even had a German Shepherd. That dog also loved to play with balls. However, The children in the courtyard did not play with it because many of the children in the west courtyard knew that if they threw their balls at the dog, their balls would not return. It was not that the blackback wanted to monopolize the ball, but it often used its teeth to bite the ball. With one bite, the ball would go through. Once, Zheng Tan saw a middle school student who was playing basketball in the Western District courtyard throw the ball over. Then, the basketball was deflated by the blackback teeth. Little Blossom stood under the shade of the tree. Some children came out to play with Little Blossom. Some children even climbed onto Little Blossom's body and treated him like a large plush toy. After Zhuo Kitten came down, she didn't go with them. She went to sit beside Zheng Tan and talked about the movie they watched a few days ago. When the little brat talked about Ronald drinking Zheng Tan's paw-washing water, she couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Zhuo stood under a tree not far away. He smiled and looked over. He didn't interrupt Zhuo Kitten. No matter what other people thought, Zhuo Kitten was certain that the actor in the movie was Zheng Tan. However, other people only took it as a child's words and didn't take it seriously. After Zhuo Kitten finished talking about Zheng Tan's movie, she talked about Little Blossom. "Brother Hey, what's in the wine barrel that Little Blossom is wearing around his neck? Mom said that it's wine, but I don't believe it." Zhuo Kitten moved closer to Zheng Tan's ear and whispered, "I touched it once, but Little Blossom pushed it away before I could open it. But there's definitely no wine in it. According to the weight, it's not empty, and there's no liquid in it." Many people knew that in some pictures, Saint Bernard dogs always had an oval-shaped wooden barrel hanging around their necks. This was also their classic image. Some people said that the barrel was filled with wine. It was used to warm up the bodies of people who were in danger in the snow. It was said that Saint Bernard dogs used to rescue travelers in the snow. The wine in the barrel could warm up people trapped by avalanches and inspire their courage to survive. Of course, there were also people who said that the barrel was just a special decoration. Old Man Li had made a small barrel for Little Blossom to wear on a whim. Usually, other than some people that Old Man Li and Little Blossom were very close to, Little Blossom didn't like other people to touch the barrel. The barrel contained some of Old Man Li's medicine. Old people always had this kind of problem. Sometimes, they would forget to bring medicine with them, or some emergency items. Old Man Li would then use this small wine barrel. Such a big dog didn't feel tired carrying a small barrel filled with medicine. After wearing it for a few years, Little Blossom had already gotten used to it. The children who liked to play with Little Blossom were all told not to touch the barrel. If they touched it, Little Blossom would get angry. Although it wouldn't bite, it would push people away with its mouth. Because of this, when Old Man Li bragged with others in the East Courtyard, he was very proud when he talked about his dog. Seeing that Zhuo Kitten was very curious about the barrel that Little Blossom wore, Zheng Tan wanted to open the barrel on Little Blossom's neck one day and show it to Zhuo Kitten. While Zhuo Kitten and Zheng Tan were chatting about Little Blossom had already been taken away by Old Man Li. There were two other old men following them. They were heading towards the entrance of the courtyard. They were probably going to do something outside the school. Some children hadn't had enough fun yet. When they were pulled back by their parents, they even negotiated with their parents, saying that they wanted to raise Little Blossom. There was a place to walk in the school. If they could apply for a permit and the dog was obedient, the people in the neighborhood wouldn't say anything. Saint Bernard wasn't considered a dog breed that liked to bark. However, the problem was that Little Blossom was so big. It was obvious that it was a foodie. If they didn't have some financial ability, they really couldn't afford to raise this big guy. It also liked to drool and shed fur. It was torturous. Old Man Li and the others didn't have much to do after retirement. However, some people who worked couldn't even take care of their children, let alone raise a dog. Moreover, it was a big guy. Raising a dog? No way. That was what everyone thought in their hearts. However, in front of their children, they would always come up with other excuses to dispel their thoughts. Zheng Tan had good hearing. He found it funny when he heard the excuses that the parents came up with. Just as he was secretly laughing, he heard a bang from the gate of the west courtyard that led outside the school. Then, many people there started to make a ruckus. It was as if an accident had happened. Some parents saw that the situation wasn't right. They hurriedly brought their children home and locked them up. Then they went over to take a look. Little Zhuo also let Zhuo Kitten go upstairs. Originally, she wanted Jing Tan to go home too. However, Jing Tan wanted to go over there to see what was going on. He heard Little Blossom's cry. Seeing that Jing Tan wouldn't budge, Little Zhua could only bring Zhua Kitten upstairs first. Mom, what happened over there? Zhua Kitten held Little Zhua's hand. Although she was curious, she still went back obediently. I don't know. Children shouldn't care about that. Zhua Kitten turned her head and saw Jing Tan running over there. After going upstairs and returning home, Zhua Kitten stood on the balcony and looked over there. From upstairs, she could see some of the scenes outside the courtyard. Because of the angle, she couldn't see what was going on even with binoculars. She could only see that many people were gathering in one direction. Since she couldn't see, Zhua Kitten looked at Little Zhua. Seeing that Little Zhua had gone into the kitchen, she took the phone and dialed a number. The phone didn't ring for long before someone picked it up. Hello, this is Zhu Yong's house. A very childish voice sounded from the other side. The words were unclear. It sounded as if he was eating something. At the same time, there were some crunching sounds. Little pig, I'm Kitten. Do you know what's going on outside the courtyard? Zhua Kitten asked. I don't know. I'm watching TV. Little Zhu, put down your popsicle. Then, pick up your binoculars and go straight to the balcony. Then, look in the direction of 2 o'clock. Where is the direction of 2 o'clock? My alarm clock is on the bed. I can't see it. Little Zhua stood at the door of the room and looked helplessly at Zhua Kitten, who was holding the phone and directing the person on the other end of the phone to see what was going on outside. On the other side, when Jing Tan arrived outside the courtyard, he found that many people had already gathered around. Little Blossom was still screaming. However, there were too many people around. Jing Tan couldn't see what was going on, but he could guess that it wasn't anything good. This gate was outside the school. The gate was on a wide road. The western courtyard's cars often came in and out of this gate, so there were more guards here. The inspection was stricter. Now, when Jing Tan came over, there was no one in the guard room. The security guards in charge of this side didn't see him either. They all ran to the scene of the incident. Just when Jing Tan wanted to climb higher to see the situation, 3 people in security uniforms pulled Little Blossom out. Little Blossom was still growling. He was very dissatisfied with the people who pulled him out. He struggled and looked at the crowd from time to time. There were bloodstains on Little Blossom. He didn't know if it was his or someone else's. The 3 security guards tied Little Blossom's dog leash to an iron hook on the wall next to the guard room. Then, one of them immediately went to the crowd. The other 2 stood at the side to rest. They also dispersed the people who ran over to see what was going on. After listening to them, Jing Tan found out that a person who wasn't very clear-headed just drove over and hit a motorcycle. The motorcycle and the people on it were all knocked out. The people and the motorcycle that were knocked out happened to be in the direction of Old Man Li and the others. Little Blossom blocked the motorcycle, but he didn't block the people. The people on the motorcycle hit Old Man Li and the others. The few old men were all lying down. It shouldn't be life-threatening, right? One of them said. It should be fine. The owner of the car slowed down. The force of hitting the motorcycle wasn't very strong. The motorcycle owner shouldn't be in life-threatening danger. It's just that the injuries look a little scary. But those old men don't know. A person who jumped off a building can kill another person. A person who was knocked out can also injure another person. If it was a young person, it definitely wouldn't be dangerous. But after all, he's so old. Even a fall could be a big problem. If he was hit. Someone there said that Old Man Li and the others were sent to the hospital. It was the school's special ambulance. Little Blossom was tied to the side. He squatted there and looked in the direction of the crowd. He made a whining sound from his nose. His usually well-groomed fur was messy. There were many bloodstains and stains. There was also blood dripping down from his fur to the ground. Dripping blood. Jing Tan went over to take a closer look. Little Blossom was injured. There were a few cuts, but they shouldn't be deep. He just didn't know if there were other problems. After all, some injuries weren't easy to see. Now, the people there were busy saving people and clearing the way. The police cars had also arrived. No one cared about Little Blossom here. Jing Tan couldn't help with saving people. The school's ambulance had already sent them to the affiliated hospital. As for Little Blossom, this place wasn't far from the pet center. Zheng Tan untied Little Blossom's leash from the metal hook. Little Blossom went one round in that direction. He didn't find Old Man Li and was even chased away by a few policemen. Little Blossom turned around and ran toward Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan jumped on the dog's back and pulled the leash. He let Little Blossom go in the direction of the pet center.